I need you to understand the seriousness of this situation.
Miranda can't seriously still be playing the victim after everything she did. Can she? 10 years for embezzlement and attempted murder. She's lucky it wasn't life. The real victim is lying in a hospital bed because of her. Miss Lawson. The correctional officer's voice cut through the visitor's room like a blade. Miranda lifted her head slowly through the reinforced glass. Her father stood in his $1,000 suit, checking his watch. Beside him, Pam, her sister, dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a door slammed. The sound echoed through concrete walls that had become more familiar to Miranda than the marble floors of the Lawson estate. Miranda. Her father's voice was flat, clinical. Your grandfather passed last night. The words should have shattered her. Once they would have. But 10 years of iron bars and concrete walls had forged something harder than grief in her chest. She loved him. Before the poisoning, before the trial, before everything turned to ash. I'm sorry, Miranda whispered, her voice barely audible through the speaker system. I know you won't believe me, but I loved him too. I would never have. Don't. Trevor Lawson Sr. raised one hand, his wedding ring catching the harsh light. Don't insult his memory with your lies. Pam placed a gentle hand on their father's arm. Father, maybe we should. No, his jaw tightened. She needs to hear this. Miranda's fingers curled against the cold steel table. She could feel the eyes of the other inmates on her. Women who'd learned to read power dynamics like survival manuals. They were watching, waiting to see if the former heiress would break. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I know I hurt the family, Miranda said carefully, each word measured. But I've changed. I've had time to think about what happened, about my mistakes. I've taken business courses here, legal studies. I've been... What you did, Pam interrupted softly, her voice honeyed with false sympathy, nearly destroyed us all. Do you have any idea what we've been through? The scandal? The media outside our gates? The board members calling for resignations. Her sister's eyes were dry despite the handkerchief. They always were. Miranda's hands clenched beneath the table. The way they're talking. It's like I'm the one who framed myself. Like I planted that evidence. Like I chose this. I want to come home, Miranda whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. When I'm released next year, I want to make things right. I want to rebuild what was broken. I'll work in any department, any position. I just want home. Her father's laugh was bitter sharp, a sound Miranda had never heard before her arrest. Before, Trevor Lawson Sr. had been stern but fair. Now he looked at her like she was something diseased. He leaned closer to the glass, his breath fogging the surface between them. Miranda, you're not getting out early. The parole board rejected your appeal. Again. And even if you were, his eyes were cold, dead. The only reason I'm here is because your grandfather wanted me to tell you in person before he died. You're written out of the will. Officially. Permanently. Pam runs the company now. The room tilted. Behind him, Pam's smile spread, slow, venomous, victorious. She wasn't dabbing at tears anymore. Her hand rested on their father's shoulder, proprietary, possessive. The pearl necklace around her throat, grandfather's gift to Miranda on her 21st birthday, caught the light. But I'm his granddaughter, Miranda breathed. His blood. He wouldn't. He believed the evidence, Trevor said simply. The bank transfers in your name. The security footage of you in his study. The toxicology report showing the poison in his tea. Poison purchased with your credit card. That was planted. I was set up. I told you. Enough. The word cracked like a whip. Trevor Lawson Sr. stood abruptly, his chair scraping against linoleum. I didn't come here to relitigate your trial. I came to deliver your grandfather's final message. You are no longer a Lawson. Not in name, not in fortune, not in memory. Father, please. Trevor, he corrected, his voice cutting deeper than any blade. You lost the right to call me father. The night you poisoned your own grandfather for money. The guard's hand fell on Miranda's shoulder. "Time's up, Lawson." But Miranda couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She watched through the glass as her father turned away, Pam tucked against his side like the daughter he'd always wanted, the daughter he'd chosen to believe. As they walked toward the exit, Pam glanced back. Just once, her lips moved silently, forming words meant only for Miranda. "Thank you." Then she was gone. The door sealed shut with a hollow. Tell me where you are watching from. And don't forget to share and like this channel. Now let's continue. Miranda sat frozen in the visiting room chair as other inmates filed out, their families trailing behind with promises of commissary money and letters that might never come. The guard waited, patient but firm. "Lawson, let's go." She stood slowly. Her legs felt distant, numb. As they walked back through the security checkpoint, past the metal detectors and the barred gates, Miranda heard whispers trailing behind her like smoke. "That's her, the one who killed her grandfather. Rich bitch thought she'd get away with it. Heard her family finally cut her off. 'Bout time." The cell block door opened with a mechanical groan. C block, her home for the past 10 years. The air smelled like industrial cleaner, sweat, and something else. Something Miranda had learned to recognize as desperation. Her cellmate, Rosa, looked up from her bunk. "How'd it go?" Miranda didn't answer. She couldn't. She crossed to her bunk, sat down on the thin mattress, and stared at the concrete wall where she'd scratched a single word on her first night. Remember, 10 years ago, she'd carved that word with a broken fingernail, her silk pajamas still smelling like her father's cigar smoke and her stepmother's perfume. She'd carved it through tears and rage and disbelief. Now, she traced the letters with steady fingers. "They think they've won. They think they've buried me." From somewhere down the block, Captain Rhonda's voice echoed. "Lights out in 30 minutes. Get your affairs in order, ladies." Miranda lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling where water stains had formed shapes she'd memorized years ago. A dragon, a crown, a pair of open gates. They think 10 years broke me. Outside her cell, the prison hummed with its nightly symphony, clanging pipes, distant arguments, the shuffle of guards on patrol. Familiar, constant, real in a way her old life had never been. "They have no idea what I've become." Rosa's voice drifted down from the top bunk. "Your family ain't coming back, are they?" "No," Miranda said softly. "They're not. So what now?" Miranda smiled in the darkness, an expression her family would never recognize. The smile of someone who'd learned to survive in a world where kindness was currency and power was the only language that mattered. "Now," she whispered, "now I finish what they started. But to understand how Miranda Lawson became the prison queen, you have to go back. Back to the night the golden world shattered. Back to the moment she realized that blood doesn't protect you from betrayal. The night before the arrest." Miranda had been in her home office at the Lawson estate, working late on the quarterly reports for Lawson Family Bank. The mansion was quiet except for the grandfather clock in the hallway, ticking away the final hours of her old life. She'd found them by accident, the altered ledgers buried in a subfolder marked Archive_2015. Bank transfers, hundreds of thousands of dollars, all traced back to an account in her name, an account she'd never opened. Her hands had trembled as she pulled up the transaction history. Real estate purchases, luxury goods, offshore accounts, every transaction marked with her digital signature. "This isn't possible," she'd whispered to the empty room. "This isn't me." She'd reached for her phone, dialing her father's private line. It rang, and rang, and rang. Then a sound from downstairs, footsteps in the marble foyer, voices raised in panic. "Call an ambulance." Now, Miranda had run down the stairs, through the hallway, into her grandfather's study. He was on the floor, convulsing, his teacup shattered beside him, amber liquid seeping into the Persian rug. Grandfather. Miranda had dropped to her knees beside him, her hands reaching for his face. What happened? Who did this? But his eyes were already glazing over. His lips moved, forming words that never came. Behind her, the security cameras blinked red, recording. witnessing, creating evidence. Later, much later, those cameras would show Miranda entering the study, touching the teacup, kneeling beside her grandfather's dying body. They wouldn't show Pam entering 20 minutes earlier. They wouldn't show the poison being added to the tea. They wouldn't show the stepmother deleting footage from the backup servers. All they would show was Miranda, guilty by presence, guilty by blood on her hands. By morning, the police were at the gates. By afternoon, she was in handcuffs. By nightfall, every news channel in the country was broadcasting her arrest. Lawson heiress arrested for attempted murder and embezzlement. The cameras had flashed as they dragged her from the mansion in silk pajamas, her diamond earrings still catching the light. Her father had stood on the steps, watching, his face carved from stone. Pam had been crying, perfect tears streaming down perfect cheeks. "How could you do this to us?" she'd sobbed for the cameras. "We trusted you." And Miranda had screamed until her voice broke, screamed until the police car door slammed shut and the world went silent. The gates of St. Riverton Correctional Facility swung open like the jaws of some massive beast. Miranda stumbled out of the transport van, her wrists raw from the cuffs, her throat still hoarse from crying. The other inmates watched from the yard, their eyes calculating, measuring, judging. "Move it, Lawson," the guard barked. "Welcome to your new home." The processing room smelled like disinfectant and fear. They stripped her of everything, her silk pajamas, her jewelry, her name. In exchange, she received a blue uniform and number, and a cellmate who looked at her like she was fresh meat. "You're the rich girl," the woman said, her smile showing missing teeth. "The one who killed her granddaddy for money." "I don't care what you did." The woman leaned closer. "I care what you got. And you? You got nothing now. So welcome to reality, princess." That first night, Miranda lay on her bunk and stared at the ceiling. Someone was crying 3 cells down. Someone else was screaming. The lights never fully went out, just dimmed to a sickly yellow that made everything look diseased. She tried to sleep, failed. Instead, she'd climbed down from her bunk and approached the wall. The concrete was rough beneath her fingertips, cold, real. With her broken fingernail, she'd scratched one word into the surface. "Remember. Remember who did this. Remember who smiled while you burned. Remember that blood doesn't matter when power is at stake. Remember." They thought 10 years would erase her, would turn the elegant heiress into just another broken woman behind bars. They were right about the breaking. They were wrong about what would emerge from the pieces. Because Miranda Lawson was about to learn something her family had never understood. True power isn't inherited. It's earned, one brutal day at a time. The camera flashes were worse than the handcuffs. Miranda stood in the defendant's box, her designer suit wrinkled from 3 days in holding, her hair, once styled by professionals, hanging limp around her shoulders. The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken dreams. "Will the defendant please rise?" She was already standing, had been standing for what felt like hours, while lawyers argued over her life like it was a corporate merger. Judge Patricia Holloway adjusted her glasses, looking down at Miranda with something that might have been pity or disgust. Miranda couldn't tell anymore. "Miss Lawson, you have been found guilty on all counts. Embezzlement of corporate funds, attempted murder of Trevor Lawson III, and obstruction of justice." The words echoed through the gallery. Miranda heard gasps, whispers, the scratch of pens on reporter notepads. 10 years, the judge declared, to be served at St. Riverton Correctional Facility. No possibility of parole for the first 5 years. Miranda's knees buckled. Her lawyer caught her elbow, steadying her. But his grip was perfunctory, professional. He'd already moved on to his next case, his next paycheck. The Lawson family retainer had dried up the moment the verdict came in. 10 years, she whispered. I didn't do this. But no one was listening. In the gallery, her father sat rigid in the front row, his face carved from marble. He didn't meet her eyes. Hadn't met them since the trial began. Beside him, her stepmother, Eleanor Lawson, dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, her performance of grief perfectly calibrated for the cameras. And Pam, her sister, sat 3 seats down, wearing a modest black dress that screamed innocence. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her expression was somber, appropriate, devastated. But her eyes were bright with triumph. As the bailiff moved to escort Miranda out, Pam leaned forward slightly, just enough for her whisper to carry. "Miranda, how could you?" The cameras swiveled, flashed, captured the moment of sisterly betrayal. Miranda wanted to scream, wanted to lunge across the barrier and tear that false expression off Pam's face, wanted to drag her father to the evidence table and force him to look at the truth. But the bailiff's hand was on her arm. The courtroom doors were closing, and the only sound louder than the reporters shouting questions was a hammer of the judge's gavel, sealing her fate. She'd been in the Lawson State Library, her laptop open. Financial records spread across the mahogany desk. The altered ledgers glowed on the screen. Transactions she'd never authorized, money flowing into accounts she'd never opened. Someone had been building a case against her for months, maybe years. "Father needs to see this," she'd muttered, reaching for her phone. The call went straight to voicemail. So did the next 3 attempts. She tried her stepmother. Voicemail. Pam. No answer. The house had been too quiet. The staff had the night off. Unusual, but not unheard of. Miranda was alone in the mansion, surrounded by wealth that suddenly felt like a cage. She'd printed the evidence, organized it into folders, prepared her presentation for the board meeting scheduled for Monday morning. This was fraud, corporate espionage. Someone was trying to destroy the Lawson empire from within, and Miranda was being set up to take the fall. "I'll fix this," she thought. "I'll expose whoever did this, and everything will go back to normal." Then she'd heard the scream. "Someone call 911. It's Trevor. He's collapsed." Miranda had run through the halls, her heels clicking on marble, her heart hammering against her ribs. The study doors were open. Inside, her grandfather lay on the Persian rug, convulsing, foam at his lips. The teacup, his favorite, the one with the Lawson family crest, lay shattered beside him. "Grandfather." Miranda dropped to her knees, her hands reaching for his face. What happened? Who was here? But Trevor Lawson III couldn't answer. His eyes rolled back, his body seizing, and all Miranda could do was hold him while Eleanor screamed for the paramedics and Pam stood in the doorway, her phone raised, recording everything. Recording Miranda with blood on her hands. Recording Miranda touching the teacup. Recording Miranda looking guilty. The ambulance arrived within minutes. The police came 20 minutes later. By dawn, Miranda was in custody. And by evening, every news outlet in the country was running the same headline. Lawson heiress arrested. Embezzlement and attempted murder. The security footage had been damning. Timestamps showed Miranda entering the study at 9:47 p.m., exactly when the poison was administered. The forensics showed her fingerprints on the teacup, on the poisoned tea kettle, on her grandfather's clothing. What the footage didn't show was Pam entering the study at 9:23 p.m. What the investigation didn't uncover was the deleted backup files. What the jury never saw was the truth. The prison transport then smelled like sweat and fear. Miranda sat shackled to a bench, her wrists raw from the cuffs, her throat still hoarse from screaming at the judge, screaming that she was innocent, that she'd been framed, that someone needed to look at the real evidence. The guards had dragged her out while reporters captured every moment. Now she sat across from 3 other women, hardened, scarred, watching her with predatory interest. "You're that rich girl," one said, her smile showing gold teeth. "The one who killed her granddaddy." "I didn't kill anyone." "Sure, honey." The woman laughed. "None of us did. We're all innocent in here." The van hit a pothole. Miranda's head cracked against the metal wall. Pain bloomed behind her eyes. But she didn't make a sound. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. 10 years, another woman mused. For a princess like you, that's going to feel like a lifetime. Nah, Goldtooth said. She won't last 10 weeks. Look at her, soft hands, clean nails, probably never scrubbed her own toilet. St. Riverton's gonna eat her alive. The third woman, older, with scars crisscrossing her face, leaned forward. Word of advice, rich girl. Don't tell anyone you're innocent. Don't cry. Don't beg. And for the love of God, don't let them see you break. Why are you helping me? I'm not. The woman sat back. I'm just tired of watching new girls get torn apart in the first week. It's boring. But if you want to survive, she pointed at Miranda's chest. Kill whatever's still soft in there. Kill it before it kills you. The van pulled through heavy gates. Through the barred windows, Miranda caught her first glimpse of St. Riverton Correctional Facility. Concrete walls, razor wire, guard towers with spotlights that probably never went dark. This was home now. For the next 10 years, this was her entire world. The processing room was white, clinical, cold. Strip. Miranda stared at the female guard, a woman built like a linebacker, with eyes that had seen too much to be shocked by anything. I said strip. Everything. Now. Miranda's hands trembled as she removed her suit jacket, the blouse, the skirt. Each piece had cost more than most people made in a month. Now they were being tossed into a plastic bin labeled personal effects. Her bra, her underwear, her dignity, squat and cough. The humiliation was the point, Miranda realized. This wasn't about security. It was about breaking her, showing her that her name, her wealth, her family, none of it mattered here. She was just another number now. They gave her a blue uniform, size large. It hung off her frame like a tent. They gave her white canvas shoes with no laces. They gave her a bedroll and a bar of soap that smelled like industrial cleaner. Welcome to St. Riverton, Lawson, the guard said, marking something on a clipboard. You're in C Block, cell 47. Your cellmate's name is Rosa Dominguez. She's doing 15 for armed robbery. Play nice. Wait, Miranda said. Can I make a phone call? I have the right. You got one call when you were arrested. You used it. Now you got nothing. The guard led her through a series of locked doors, each one slamming shut behind her with metallic finality. The smell changed as they went deeper. Disinfectant gave way to body odor, mildew, and something else. Something Miranda would later recognize as despair. The cell block opened before her. 3 tiers of cells, metal railings, concrete floors. Some where someone was screaming. Someone else was laughing. A radio played distorted music. Dozens of women turned to look at her. Their eyes were sharp, calculating, measuring her worth. Fresh meat, someone called from an upper tier. That's the Lawson girl, the one from TV. Look at those soft hands. Princess ain't never worked a day in her life. The guard stopped at cell 47. Inside, a woman with sleeves of tattoos looked up from a book. Rosa, meet your new roommate. Play nice, or you both go to the hole. The cell door slammed shut. Miranda stood frozen, clutching her bedroll, staring at the 6-by-8-foot space that would be her home. Rosa marked her place in the book, the Count of Monte Cristo, Miranda noticed, and studied her new cellmate with dark, unreadable eyes. You really kill your grandfather for money? No, don't care either way. Rosa gestured to the top bunk. That's yours. Don't touch my stuff. Don't talk when I'm reading. Don't cry after lights out. I need my sleep. Miranda climbed onto the bunk, the thin mattress barely cushioning the metal frame beneath. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling where water stains had formed shapes that meant nothing. Outside the cell, the prison hummed with life. Voices, footsteps, doors slamming. Miranda's hands found the concrete wall. Rough, cold, real. She didn't have a broken fingernail yet, but she had her desperation. With trembling fingers, she pressed against the surface and scratched one word into the stone. Remember. Lights didn't go out completely. They dimmed to a sickly yellow that made everything look diseased. Someone 3 cells down was crying. Someone else was having a nightmare. The guard on patrol walked past every 30 minutes, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Miranda lay perfectly still, her body rigid with fear. First night's always the worst, Rosa said quietly from below. Does it get better? No, you just get used to it. Miranda closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Behind her eyelids, she saw her father's face. Pam smile. The judges gavel. The camera flashes. They think they've buried me. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory from before, when he was still strong, still alive. A Lawson doesn't break, Miranda. We bend. We adapt. We survive. I'm not a Lawson anymore, she whispered to the darkness. What? Rosa called up. Nothing. But something shifted in Miranda's chest. Something small and sharp and cold. The girl who walked into this cell was dead. The heiress with soft hands and clean nails was gone. What emerged from this concrete tomb would be something else entirely. They stripped her of her name, her fortune, her freedom. But they made one critical mistake. They left her alive. And in the hell of St. Riverton Correctional Facility, Miranda Lawson was about to learn what it truly meant to survive. Miranda woke to the sound of metal scraping against metal. The cell door was open. Rosa was already gone, her bunk made with military precision, her book tucked under the pillow. Outside, the cell block hummed with morning chaos. Women shouting, guards barking orders, the distant clang of breakfast trays being distributed. Miranda's body ached. 2 nights on a mattress thinner than a yoga mat had left her back screaming. Her wrists were still raw from the handcuffs. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She sat up slowly, her feet touching cold concrete. Day 3. Just 3,647 more to go. Lawson, move your ass. Breakfast in 5. The guard's voice echoed through the block. Miranda grabbed her uniform, already starting to smell despite her attempts to wash it in the tiny sink, and dressed quickly. Her reflection in the polished steel mirror was unrecognizable. Hollow eyes, tangled hair, a bruise blooming on her cheek from where she'd hit the transport van wall. This is temporary, she told herself. Father will realize his mistake. The lawyers will file an appeal. Someone will find the real evidence. But the words felt hollow. She stepped out of her cell and joined the line of women shuffling toward the mess hall. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, a persistent strobe that made everything feel unstable, dreamlike. Fresh meat still here, someone muttered behind her. Give it a week. Nah. 3 days max, rich girls don't last. Miranda kept her eyes forward, didn't react. Rosa had told her, show weakness, and they'll tear you apart. The mess hall smelled like overcooked eggs and industrial cleaner. Women sat at long metal tables, eating off plastic trays, their conversations a low roar punctuated by occasional shouts. Guards stood at intervals along the walls, watching, waiting for trouble. Miranda grabbed a tray and moved through the line. Watery scrambled eggs, toast that looked like cardboard, coffee that smelled like burnt rubber. The woman serving slapped each item onto her tray with barely concealed contempt. Keep moving, princess. Miranda found an empty spot at the end of the table and sat down. The eggs tasted like nothing. The toast was stale, but she forced herself to eat, knowing this might be the only meal that actually filled her stomach today. She was 3 bites in when they arrived. 4 women, moving with purpose. 1 sat down across from her. 2 flanked her sides. The 4th stood behind her, blocking her exit. Well, the woman across from her said, her smile sharp as broken glass. The Lawson girl, in the flesh. Miranda's heart kicked into overdrive, but she kept her expression neutral. I'm eating. We know. The woman reached across the table and dragged Miranda's tray toward her. And now you're sharing. She picked up the toast and took a bite, her eyes never leaving Miranda's face. That's mine, Miranda said quietly. Was yours. The woman grabbed the coffee next. Everything in here belongs to someone stronger. And you. She leaned forward. You ain't strong yet. The woman to Miranda's left laughed, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Her hand shot out, fingers tangling in Miranda's hair. Pretty hair, she cooed. Real pretty. Rich girl hair. Miranda felt the cold press of metal against her scalp. Scissors. No. The woman cut. A thick lock of Miranda's hair fell onto the table, dark strands mixing with the eggs and coffee. "Oops," she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. My hand slipped. The table around them erupted in laughter. Women turned to watch, their expressions ranging from amusement to pity. Even the guards looked on, their faces impassive. Miranda's hands clenched into fists onto the table. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Every instinct screamed at her to lunge, to fight back, to reclaim her dignity. But Rosa's voice echoed in her head. "Pick your battles. Survive first." So Miranda sat there, perfectly still, while they laughed and cut another lock of her hair. "Look at her," someone called from another table. "Sitting there like a good little princess. Not so tough without daddy's lawyers." Huh. The woman across from her, the ringleader, stood up, taking Miranda's tray with her. "Welcome to St. Riverton, rich girl. Hope you enjoy your stay." They walked away, leaving Miranda surrounded by her own hair, her breakfast gone, her humiliation complete. The guard who'd been watching, a tall black woman with captain's bars on her uniform, caught Miranda's eye and smiled, amused. After breakfast, they were herded into the yard for recreation. The space was a concrete wasteland surrounded by 20-foot walls topped with razor wire, basketball hoops with no nets, rusted weight benches. Women clustered in groups, divided by invisible borders that Miranda was only beginning to understand. She stood near the wall, trying to be invisible. "You." Miranda turned. A guard, not the captain, but a younger man with acne scars and mean eyes, pointed at her. "Lawson, you're on bathroom detail. Let's go." Did I ask if you already? Move." He led her back inside, through corridors that all looked the same, to a bathroom that smelled like a war crime. Toilets were clogged. The floors were covered in. Miranda didn't want to know what. "Clean it," the guard said, tossing her a bucket and a scrub brush. "I want it spotless in an hour." "I don't know how to." "Figure it out, princess." He leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "Or don't. Either way, it's entertaining for me." Miranda stared at the bathroom, at the filth, at the impossible task. "I used to have people who cleaned for me. I used to complain when the maid didn't fold my towels correctly." Her hands, once perfectly manicured, once soft from expensive lotions, closed around the brush handle. She got on her knees, and she scrubbed. The guard laughed. Somebody get a picture of this. The great Lawson heiress on her knees, scrubbing shit. Other inmates appeared in the doorway, watching, laughing. How the mighty have fallen. But she's never even cleaned her own toilet before. Look at those soft hands. She's going to have blisters for weeks. Miranda kept scrubbing. Her shoulders burned. Her knees ached against the concrete. The chemicals made her eyes water. But she refused to stop, refused to cry. Remember. That single word, scratched into her cell wall, became a mantra. Remember who did this. Remember who's responsible. Remember that this is temporary. An hour later, the bathroom was passable, not spotless, but clean enough that the guard grudgingly let her leave. Miranda's hands were raw, red, blistered. She looked at them as she walked back to her cell. These hands that once wore diamond rings, that once signed million-dollar contracts, that once never touched anything harsher than silk. They were changing. She was changing. Dinner was the same as breakfast. Mystery meat, watered-down vegetables, bread that could be used as a weapon. Miranda got her tray and immediately looked for a place to sit, somewhere safe, somewhere where she wouldn't be a target. But there was nowhere. Every table had its hierarchy, its established order, and she was the intruder. She chose a spot at the end of a half-empty table, kept her head down, started eating quickly, hoping to finish before. "That's my seat." Miranda looked up. The woman from breakfast, the ringleader, stood over her, flanked by her crew. Up close, Miranda could see the tattoos covering her arms. Teardrops, roses, words in script too faded to read. "I didn't know," Miranda said quietly. "I'll move." "Nah." The woman sat down across from her instead. "I changed my mind. I want to get to know our little princess better." The cafeteria noise seemed to dim. Women at nearby tables turned to watch. Name's Tanya, the woman said. I run the Denver. You know what that is? No. The den is where you go when you need something. Cigarettes, phone time, protection. We provide services for the right price. Tanya leaned forward. And you, rich girl, look like someone who needs protection. I don't have any money. Tanya laughed. A harsh barking sound. Money? Who said anything about money? You got something better. You got a name. The loss of name. That name means nothing in here. Wrong. Tanya's smile vanished. That name means connections on the outside. It means lawyers. It means people who owe your family favors. And in here, she tapped the table. Information is currency. Miranda's mind raced. This was a negotiation, a business deal, something she actually understood. What do you want? Smart girl. See, I knew you weren't as soft as you look. Tanya pulled out a cigarette, lit it despite the NO smoking signs everywhere. None of the guards moved. My kid brother's got a case coming up. Assault charge. He needs a good lawyer. Your family's firm. My family isn't my family anymore, Miranda interrupted. They wrote me out, disowned me. I can't help you. Can't or won't? Can't. Tanya studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, I believe you, which means you got nothing to offer me, which means... She stood up. You're on your own, princess. She snapped her fingers. The woman to Miranda's left grabbed her tray. No protection means no food. No food means you get weak. Weak means... I get it, Miranda said, her voice harder than she intended. Tanya raised an eyebrow. You got attitude. I like that. But attitude don't fill your belly. They walked away with her tray. Again, Miranda sat at the empty table, her hands shaking, her stomach growling. Around her, women ate and talked and laughed, and she was completely, utterly alone. Then she felt it. Eyes on her. She looked up, across the cafeteria. The captain, the one who'd watched her humiliation at breakfast, was staring at her, not with amusement now, but with something else, something calculating. Their eyes met. The captain tilted her head slightly, a gesture that might have been acknowledgement, or challenge. Then she turned and walked away, back in her cell. Miranda lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling, her stomach cramped with hunger. Her hands throbbed. Her scalp ached where they'd cut her hair. You made it through day 3, Rosa said from below. That's better than most. They took my food, both meals. They'll keep taking it until you do something about it. Like what? Fight for women by myself? If you have to. Miranda closed her eyes. I'm not a fighter. I'm a negotiator, a strategist. I solve problems with words, not fists. But words didn't work here. She reached under her pillow, carefully making sure Rosa couldn't see, and pulled out the one thing they hadn't confiscated. Her diamond ring. She'd hidden it during intake, tucking it into her bra before the strip search. It was small enough to miss, valuable enough to matter. Her grandmother's engagement ring. The one piece of her old life she'd managed to keep. The diamond caught the dim light, throwing tiny rainbows across the concrete wall. This is worth more than most people make in a year. And here could buy protection, food, safety, but it could also buy something else. Respect. Morning came with the same routine. The metal scrape of doors opening, the guard shout, the shuffle toward breakfast. Miranda got her tray, looked at the tables, saw Tanya's crew already watching her, smiling, waiting to take what was hers. Not today. She walked to their table and sat down across from Tanya. Well, Tanya said, look who grew a spine. I have something to trade, Miranda said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. Oh yeah? What's that? Miranda placed her grandmother's ring on the table. The cafeteria noise seemed to pause. Women nearby noticed, whispered. The diamond glinted under fluorescent lights. A tiny piece of another world, sitting on a prison mess hall table. Tanya picked it up, examining it with expert eyes. This is real. Yes. Worth 30,000. Maybe more. Tanya's crew leaned in, their expressions hungry. But Tanya herself looked at Miranda with new interest. You want protection? No, Miranda said. I want my food. Every meal. No one touches my tray. That's the deal. That's it? You're trading 30 grand for food. I'm trading it for the right to survive on my own terms. Tanya laughed, genuinely this time. Girl, you're either stupid or you got balls. I can't figure out which. Do we have a deal? We do. Tanya pocketed the ring. But understand something. This buys you a week. After that, you're on your own again. Better figure out how to stand up by then. I will. As Miranda stood to leave, Tanya called after her. Hey, princess. You might actually survive this place. Miranda didn't respond. She walked to an empty table, sat down and ate her breakfast. No one touched her tray, but the woman from yesterday, the one who'd cut her hair, was watching, angry, humiliated that Miranda had found a way around her. After breakfast in the narrow hallway between the cafeteria and the yard, she made her move. You think you're smart, girl? Miranda turned. The woman was right behind her, a shiv made from a sharpened toothbrush in her hand. Tanya might have taken your deal, but I didn't. And now I'm gonna... Miranda didn't let her finish. She'd never thrown a punch in her life, never been in a fight, never had to defend herself physically. But 10 years of fury found his target. Her fist connected with the woman's jaw. Pain exploded through Miranda's knuckles. But she didn't stop. She swung again, wild, desperate, all technique and none of the fear that had paralyzed her for 3 days. The woman stumbled back, shocked. Then she lunged forward, the shiv flashing. Miranda grabbed her wrist. They struggled, crashing against the wall. Other inmates formed a circle, shouting, cheering, placing bets on who would draw first blood. The shiv clattered to the floor. Miranda's diamond ring, the one she'd hidden, was still on her finger. The one thing she'd kept from intake, because she'd tucked it in her bra. No, she'd give it to Tanya. But the other hand, her bare, blistered hand, found the woman's throat. Touch me again, Miranda hissed, her voice unrecognizable, and I'll kill you. She meant it. The woman must have seen it in her eyes, because she went still. Blood dripped on the concrete, from Miranda's split knuckles, from the woman's mouth where her tooth had cut through her lip. Break it up. Guards flooded the hallway. Miranda was pulled back, thrown against the wall, searched. They found nothing. The shiv had disappeared into someone's pocket. The captain, Rhonda according to her nameplate, grabbed Miranda by the arm and hauled her toward isolation. First fight on day 4. That's a record for someone like you. Someone like me? Rich, soft, entitled. Rhonda shoved her into a cell. Usually your type doesn't fight back. They just break. I'm not breaking. Rhonda studied her. There was no amusement in her expression now. Only evaluation. No, she said quietly. I don't think you are. The door slammed shut, leaving Miranda in darkness. Solitary confinement was a concrete box barely big enough to lie down in. No windows. No light except what bled through the slot in the door. No sound except Miranda's own breathing. She sat with her back against the wall, cradling her injured hand. The knuckles were split, swelling already. Tomorrow they'd be purple. But she'd won. Sort of. I traded my grandmother's ring for a week of safety. I got into a fight. I threatened to kill someone. What am I becoming? Footsteps outside. The door slot opened. Rhonda's face appeared in the gap. You got 3 days in here for fighting. Could have been worse. Miranda didn't respond. That ring you gave Tanya? It's already making its way through the black market. By tomorrow, half the prison will know you had something valuable and you used it to survive. Is that bad? Depends. Rhonda's eyes glinted in the dim light. Could make you target. Could make you interesting. Either way, you're on people's radar now. What do you want? Me? Rhonda smiled. I want to see what you do next. See, most girls like you, they come in here thinking they're above it all. Too good for prison politics. They get eaten alive. But you? She paused. You're adapting. I'm surviving. Same thing in here. Rhonda started to close the slot, then stopped. Word of advice, Lawson, you want to live? Learn the rules. Every power structure, every alliance, every weakness. And if I don't, then make your own rules. Rhonda's voice dropped to a whisper. But if you're going to make your own rules, you better be strong enough to enforce them. The slot closed. Miranda sat in darkness, her hand throbbing, her mind racing. Learn the rules, or make your own. She looked up at the concrete wall. Even in isolation, even in complete darkness, she could feel the weight of the prison pressing down on her. But she could also feel something else. The first spark of defiance. The first hint of power. They think 3 days in isolation will break me. They think I'll come out scared. They're wrong. She closed her eyes and saw her cell wall. Saw the word she'd scratched there. Remember. I remember Pam. I remember Father. I remember everything. And when I get out of here, when I walk free, you're going to remember me too. 3 days later, Miranda Lawson walked out of solitary confinement. Her hand was still swollen. Her hair was still hacked short. Her uniform still hung off her frame. But something in her eyes had changed. The guard saw it. The inmate saw it. Even Rhonda saw it. The rich girl who'd arrived broken and desperate, she was gone. What emerged from that concrete box was something harder, something dangerous, something that understood the most important lesson of St. Riverton. Power doesn't come from what you were. It comes from what you're willing to become. She knew that fights broke out on Tuesdays when commissary orders came in wrong. She knew that the guards changed shifts at 3 p.m., leaving a 7-minute window when no one was watching the West Corridor. She knew which inmates ran which operations, who owed favors to whom, and where the real power lived. It lived in the spaces between rules, in the quiet negotiations, in the unspoken hierarchies. She'd survived 3 months. Her hands were calloused now, her uniform properly broken in. The gash across her knuckles from the hallway fight had healed into a white scar, her first permanent mark. Her hair had grown back and even, and she'd stopped caring what it looked like. The woman in the mirror wasn't Miranda Lawson anymore. She was Lawson, just Lawson. The surname that once opened doors now kept her alive. She sat at her usual spot in the mess hall, not at Tanya's table, not alone, but at a middle table where the neutral inmates gathered. Women who weren't part of gangs but weren't targets either. She negotiated her way here through small favors, helping an inmate write a letter to her lawyer, explaining financial documents for another woman's appeal, trading her dessert rations for information. Rosa sat across from her, methodically eating her way through mystery meat that might have been chicken. You hear about the kitchen? Rosa said quietly. What about it? Tanya's people think the guards are skimming supplies. The den's supposed to get first pick on the good stuff, cigarettes, real coffee, decent soap. But last 3 shipments came up short. Miranda filed that information away. Who's she blaming? The East Side crew. Says they're cutting in on her territory. And Rosa looked up, her dark eyes sharp. And when territories get disputed in here, people bleed. As if summoned by her words, Miranda felt the temperature in the room shift. It was subtle. A conversation dying mid-sentence. Someone standing too quickly. The scrape of a chair pushed back, hard enough to echo. Miranda's eyes found the source. Tanya stood at her table, her posture rigid. Across from her, a woman Miranda recognized as Keisha, leader of the East Side crew, was on her feet, her hand hidden behind her back. You call me a thief? Keisha's voice carried across the mess hall. I'm saying, Tanya replied, her tone deceptively calm, that my shipment came up 50 cartons light. And I'm saying that your crew's been smoking brand-name cigarettes all week. You do the math. Maybe you should count better. Maybe you should show some respect. The mess hall went silent. Even the guards felt it, that electric charge before violence. Miranda saw them shift, hands moving toward their batons. But they didn't intervene. Not yet. Prison politics had their own justice system, and the guards knew better than to step in too early. Respect. Keisha laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want respect? Try earning it instead of hiding behind your reputation. Tanya's smile was cold. Careful what you start, Keisha. You might not like how it ends. Then let's end it. Keisha's hand came out from behind her back. The blade caught the fluorescent light, crude, fashioned from a piece of sheet metal, sharpened against concrete until it could cut through skin like paper. Someone screamed, and then chaos erupted. Tanya's crew surged forward. East Side responded. Tables overturned, trays clattered to the floor, and suddenly the mess hall transformed into a war zone. Miranda stood frozen for half a second, her instincts screaming at her to run, to hide, to find cover. But she'd learned something in 3 months. In prison, running made you pray. Move. Rosa grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. They'd made it 3 steps when a body crashed into them. One of Tanya's people, blood streaming from a gash above her eye. She stumbled, fell, and suddenly women were swarming over her, kicking, punching, taking out frustrations that had nothing to do with cigarettes or territory. This was about power, always about power. The guards finally moved, blowing whistles, shouting orders that no one could hear over the screaming. Batons came out. Pepper spray filled the air. But there were 40 women rioting and only 6 guards on duty. Miranda saw Keisha break free from the crowd, her blade still in hand, searching for Tanya. She spotted her target near the kitchen entrance, Tanya backing away, weaponless. Her crew, too, far away to help. Keisha charged. Miranda's brain calculated the trajectories, the timing, the outcomes. This wasn't her fight. She had no stake in the war between the Den and East Side. The smart play was to stay down, stay safe, let them kill each other. But then she saw Rosa. Her cellmate had been shoved against the wall by the surge of bodies. A woman, one of East Side's enforcers, had her pinned fist raised, ready to break her face open just because she was in the wrong place. No, Miranda moved without thinking. She grabbed a plastic tray from the floor and swung it like a bat, connecting with the enforcer's skull. The woman staggered, and Rosa scrambled free. "What the hell are you doing?" Rosa shouted. "Surviving." Then Miranda saw her. A young inmate, couldn't be more than 20, was on the ground near the overturned tables. Blood pooled beneath her, spreading across the concrete. She'd been caught in the crossfire, stabbed by someone's blade, and now she was being trampled as the riot surged around her. No one was helping her. No one even saw her. Miranda's grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. Power without compassion is tyranny, but compassion without action is worthless. She pushed through the crowd, elbows flying, until she reached the girl. Blood sprayed across Miranda's blue uniform, arterial red against prison blue, as she knelt beside the wounded inmate. The girl's eyes were wide, terrified, blood bubbling at her lips. "Stay with me," Miranda said, pressing her hands against the wound. The blood was hot, sticky, flowing too fast. "Look at me. Stay with me." Someone kicked Miranda in the ribs. Accidental, intentional, she couldn't tell. She didn't move. She wrapped her body around the girl, shielding her from the chaos, her hands maintaining pressure on the wound even as her own uniform turned crimson. "I could die here, right now, for someone I don't even know." But she didn't move. The riot surged around them, a hurricane of violence and fury, and Miranda Lawson, former heiress, became the eye of the storm. Perfectly still, perfectly calm, blood spraying across her face, her arms, her uniform. She didn't flinch. Captain Rhonda saw her first. Through the pepper spray fog and the chaos and the screaming, Rhonda saw Miranda kneeling on the ground, protecting an inmate, refusing to move despite the violence raging around her. Medical? Now. Rhonda waded into the riot with 3 other guards, batons swinging, driving back the crowd. She reached Miranda and the wounded girl, positioning herself between them and the violence. "Lawson, you need to move. She's dying. And you'll join her if you don't move." "And I die." Miranda's eyes met Rhonda's, wild, fierce, absolutely certain. "But I'm not leaving her." For a moment, Rhonda just stared. She'd seen hundreds of inmates come through St. Rivert, Most broke within weeks. Others adapted, became predators themselves. A rare few found ways to survive in the gray spaces. But this was different. This was someone choosing compassion in the middle of hell. Rhonda made a decision. She planted herself over Miranda and the wounded girl, her baton raised, forming a human barrier. Anyone comes near them, you deal with me. The riot squad arrived minutes later. 12 guards in full gear, shields raised, restoring order through overwhelming force. Inmates were dragged away zip-tied, thrown against walls. The mess hall floor was slick with blood, food, and pepper spray residue. The EMTs rushed in, taking over for Miranda. They loaded the girl onto a stretcher, working frantically to stop the bleeding. Will she live? Miranda asked, her voice hoarse. One EMT glanced at her. Because of you? Maybe. They wheeled the girl away. Miranda tried to stand. Her legs gave out. Rhonda caught her before she hit the ground. Easy. You're in shock. I'm fine. You're covered in blood and you can barely stand. That's not fine. Rhonda guided her toward the exit, away from the aftermath. Other guards were processing the rioters, documenting injuries, identifying ringleaders, preparing disciplinary reports. You just earned yourself a week in solitary for fighting, Rhonda said quietly. I wasn't fighting. I was helping. Same thing in here. Rhonda paused at the doorway, studying Miranda with new intensity. Why'd you do it? That girl isn't in your crew, isn't your cellmate. You had no reason to risk yourself. Miranda looked down at her blood-soaked uniform. 3 months ago, she would have screamed at the sight, would have panicked, would have demanded it be burned and replaced. Now she just felt tired, because no one else would. Rhonda's expression shifted, something that might have been respect, or recognition. Come on, let's get you cleaned up before we process you. The showers were empty, the water cold. Miranda stood under the spray, watching blood swirl down the drain, red mixing with rust stains and soap scum. She scrubbed her hands, her arms, her face. The blood came off, but the memory didn't. That girl's eyes, wide, terrified, grateful. I saved someone today. The thought felt surreal. In the outside world, Miranda Lawson had signed checks for charity galas and served on nonprofit boards. She'd donated money to hospitals, to schools, to causes approved by the family PR team. But she'd never actually saved anyone. Not with her own hands. Not with her own blood. You're thinking too much. Miranda turned. Rhonda stood at the entrance to the showers, arms crossed. I thought I was going to solitary. You are. After we talk. About what? Rhonda stepped closer. About what I saw in that mess hall. About what you could become. I don't understand. Yes, you do. Rhonda's voice dropped. You think I don't recognize ambition when I see it? You think I don't know strategy? I don't have any strategy. I'm just trying to survive. Bullshit. Rhonda smiled slightly. Smart girls don't trade diamond rings for food. They trade them for position. You didn't fight that woman in the hallway because you were scared. You fought her to send a message. And today, she gestured toward the mess hall. Today you chose to protect someone in the middle of a riot. You chose to be seen as someone worth respecting. Miranda's hands stilled under the water. You think I planned this? No. I think you acted on instinct. But instinct reveals who you really are. Rhonda leaned against the tile wall. This prison runs on power. The guards enforce the rules, but inmates control the reality. And that reality is shaped by people like Tanya, like Keisha. People who understand that fear and respect are the same currency. I'm not like them. Not yet. Rhonda's eyes glinted. But you could be. You've got something they don't. You understand both worlds. You speak their language and the language of people with actual power. You negotiate instead of threaten. You think instead of react. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of watching stupid people run this place. Rhonda pushed off the wall. The Den and East Side will destroy each other within a year. When they do, there'll be a vacuum. Someone will fill it. Someone always does. And you want that someone to be me? I want that someone to be smart enough to keep order, to prevent riots like today, to make my job easier. Rhonda headed toward the exit, then paused. Think about it during your week in isolation. Think about what you want when you walk out of here in 10 years. Do you want to be just another ex-con? Or do you want to be someone who learned to rule? I want revenge. The words came out before Miranda could stop them. Rhonda turned back, her expression unreadable. Revenge. My family. They framed me, destroyed me, threw me away like garbage. Miranda's voice was steady, cold. When I get out, I'm going to make them pay. And how do you plan to do that? You have no money, no connections, no power. Then I'll build power. Rhonda studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled, genuinely this time. Good answer. She tossed Miranda a clean uniform. Get dressed. Time for solitary. The cell was the same as before. Concrete. Darkness. The slot in the door that let in a sliver of light. Miranda sat with her back against the wall, her eyes closed, replaying the riot in her mind. The chaos. The blood. The decision to protect instead of flee. I could have died. I should have run. But I didn't. Why didn't I? The answer came slowly, like water seeping through cracks. Because for the first time since I was arrested, I had power. Not because of my name, my money, or my family, but because I chose to act. I chose to be someone who protected instead of someone who needed protection. That's power. The slot opened. A tray slid through, bread, water. An apple that looked like it had seen better days. Miranda took the tray and ate slowly, methodically, maintaining her strength. When she finished, she stood and approached the wall. Her fingers found the old scratch marks, the word she'd carved on her first night in prison. Remember. Below it, she carved something new. Just 2 letters, but they meant everything. QN. Queen. The slot opened. Rhonda's voice drifted through. You've got 1 more day in here, Lawson. When you come out, things are going to be different. How? Word spread about what you did. The girl you saved? Her name's Carmen. She's Tanya's niece. You saved the life of someone important. Miranda stood, approaching the door. I didn't know that. Makes it even better. You didn't do it for politics. You did it because it was right. Rhonda paused. Tanya wants to meet with you, officially, to thank you and discuss opportunities. What kind of opportunities? The kind that could make you very powerful, or very dead. Depends on how smart you are. And you? What do you want? Me. Rhonda's laugh was soft. I want order. I want this prison to run smoothly, and I think you might be the key to that. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I've been watching you, Lawson. 3 months ago, you were broken. Now you're calculating, learning, adapting. You're not trying to survive anymore. You're trying to win. Is that allowed? If you want to live, learn the rules. Rhonda's fingers appeared through the slot, tapping the metal. Or make your own. The slot closed. Miranda stood in darkness, her mind racing. Tanya wants to meet. Carmen is her niece. I have leverage now. Real leverage. The riot changed everything. She pressed her hand against the wall, feeling the rough concrete, the carved letters beneath her palm. Remember, QN. They think I'm adapting to prison. They're wrong. Prison is adapting to me. The door opened on the 7th day. Sunlight, or what passed for sunlight through prison skylights, flooded the cell. Miranda stepped out, blinking, her eyes adjusting. A crowd had gathered. Not a riot, not violence, just women standing along the walkways, watching. Rosa was there, some of the neutral inmates, even a few of Tanya's crew, and Captain Rhonda, standing with her arms crossed, a slight smile on her face. Welcome back, Lawson. Miranda walked through the crowd slowly. No one touched her. No one spoke, but their eyes said everything. Respect, fear, curiosity. As she passed Tanya's table in the common area, the gang leader stood. She didn't say anything, just gave a single nod. Acknowledgement. Miranda returned it. She made her way to her cell, where Rosa was already waiting. "They're calling you the princess," Rosa said quietly. "The princess who wouldn't run." "I'm not a princess." "No." Rosa looked at her with something that might have been awe. "You're not." Miranda climbed onto her bunk and lay back, staring at the ceiling. Her body ached. Her mind buzzed with possibilities. The riot was chaos, but chaos creates opportunity. Tanya owes me. Rhonda sees potential in me. The inmates respect me. This is how empires are built, not with money or birthright, but with blood and choice and the willingness to stand when everyone else runs. She closed her eyes and whispered to the concrete ceiling, "I'm coming for you, Pam. I'm coming for all of you. And when I do, you'll wish you'd killed me instead of just locking me away." The image of Miranda Lawson kneeling in the mess hall, blood spraying across her blue uniform, her hands pressed against the dying girl's wound, her eyes steady and fearless, would spread through St. Riverton like wildfire. By the end of the week, every inmate knew her name. By the end of the month, even the guards spoke of her differently. The rich girl who'd arrived broken and desperate, she was gone. In her place stood something new, something that understood the language of power, something that wore blue like royal robes and turned punishment into possibility. The prison queen was being born, and she was only getting started. The broken chair had been salvaged from the maintenance shed, metal frame bent, seat cracked down the middle, one leg shorter than the others. Someone had welded it back together, reinforced it with scrap metal, and painted it with stolen spray paint. It sat in the northwest corner of the yard, positioned against the concrete wall where the afternoon sun created a pocket of warmth. And Miranda Lawson sat on it like a throne, her royal blue uniform, the same one every inmate wore, somehow looked different on her now. She tailored it herself using thread bartered from the sewing shop, taking the waist, cuffing the sleeves, just so. It fit her like it was made for her, like it was a choice, not a sentence. Around her, 7 women stood or sat on the ground, listening. "The commissary shipment comes in Friday," Miranda said, her voice calm measured. "Tanya, your crew gets first pick on cigarettes and coffee. East Side gets hygiene supplies and batteries. Neutral Zone gets whatever's left, distributed evenly." Tanya, arms crossed, nodded slowly. "And if East Side tries to skim, they won't." Miranda's eyes shifted to Keisha, who stood to the right, her posture defensive but not hostile, because Keisha knows that skimming means we go back to riots, and riots mean lockdowns, and lockdowns mean nobody eats. Keisha's jaw tightened. "You're putting a lot of faith in a system that benefits your side more than mine." "My side?" Miranda leaned forward slightly. "I don't have a side. I have order, and order benefits everyone." Easy for you to say when you're sitting in the chair. Then challenge me for it. The yard went quiet. Even the basketball game on the far court seemed to pause. Keisha stared at Miranda, weighing the challenge. 6 months ago, she would have lunged, would have fought for dominance. But 6 months ago, Miranda hadn't brokered 3 separate peace agreements, hadn't prevented 2 riots, hadn't earned the quiet respect of even the guards. "I'm not challenging you," Keisha said finally. "Not today. Then we have a deal." Miranda gestured to Rosa, who'd been taking notes on a scrap of paper, recording agreements, tracking debts, maintaining the delicate web of alliances that kept St. Riverton from tearing itself apart. "Friday, 2 p.m., commissary distribution. Everyone brings their lists. We sort it out before the guards process anything. Clean, efficient, no blood." The women dispersed, each returning to their respective territories, all except Tanya, who lingered. "You know this won't last forever," she said quietly. "Eventually, someone's going to get ambitious. Someone's going to try to take your chair. Let them try. You got a plan for that?" Miranda smiled, not the polished smile of the heiress she used to be, but something sharper, more dangerous. "I always have a plan." The den operated out of Cell Block D, in a storage room that had been abandoned after a pipe burst 3 years ago. Officially, it was condemned. Unofficially, it was the economic heart of St. Riverton. Miranda walked through the door with Rosa at her side, Inside, the room had been transformed. Shelves made from stolen plywood, inventory organized by category. A makeshift desk cobbled together from cafeteria tables. Tanya's second in command, a woman named Letitia, sat at the desk, counting cigarettes. "Lawson," she said without looking up, "what brings you to our humble establishment?" "A proposition." "We don't need propositions. We need product. What if I could double your inventory?" Now, Letitia looked up. "I'm listening." Miranda pulled out a folded piece of paper, a diagram she'd drawn during her hour in the library. It showed the prison's supply chain, how goods came in through the loading dock, how they were processed through the main storage facility, how they were distributed to various departments. You're getting your supplies by stealing from commissary and cutting deals with sympathetic guards. It works, but it's inefficient. High risk, low reward. And you have a better way? I do. Miranda pointed to a specific section of the diagram. The medical wing orders supplies monthly. Bandages, soap, basic medications. Most of it goes unused because the budget's inflated to account for waste. But that waste doesn't disappear. It gets stored in a secondary closet that nobody monitors. Letitia studied the diagram. "How do you know this?" "Because I've been helping Captain Rhonda with inventory audits. She trusts me with paperwork now." "And you want what in exchange for this information?" 15% of everything that comes through the Denver. "Not for me, for the neutral zone. The women who aren't in gangs, who can't afford protection, who get preyed on." Letitia laughed. "You wants to pay a tax to help the weak? That's bad business." "No," Miranda said calmly. "It's good strategy. Right now, neutral women are desperate. Desperate people cause problems. They steal, they fight, they attract guard attention. But if they're taken care of, they become allies. They keep quiet. They provide cover." Letitia looked at Rosa. "Is she always like this?" Rosa shrugged. "She's exhausting." "Fine," Letitia said. 15%. But you set up the supply line. You take the risk. We get the reward." "Agreed." Miranda turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. I need access to law books. Real ones. Not the stripped-down versions in the prison library." "Law books? What for?" "My education." Letitia studied her for a long moment. "You planning an appeal?" "I'm planning for the future." "Tanya was right about you. You're not trying to survive anymore. You're trying to build something. Is that a problem?" "Nah." Letitia smiled. "Just don't forget who helped you build it." Captain Rhonda's office was small, cluttered with paperwork and old coffee mugs. She looked up as Miranda entered, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Right on time. You ready to explain why last week's medical inventory came up 20 units short?" Miranda sat, placing a folder on the desk. "Because I redistributed them." Rhonda raised an eyebrow. "You redistributed prison medical supplies. Unused supplies. Expired within 3 months. Sitting in a closet while inmates in C Block were treating infections with hand soap. That's theft. That's logistics." Rhonda leaned back in her chair, studying Miranda with the same calculating expression she'd worn since the riot. "You know what you are, Lawson? You're a problem solver. Annoying as hell, but effective." "Thank you." Wasn't a compliment. Rhonda pulled out a stack of forms. "But since you're so good at solving problems, maybe you can help me with this. Budget reconciliation for the commissary. Due Friday. Normally takes me 3 days. Think you can do it in 2. Miranda took the stack. The forms were dense. Requisition orders, inventory sheets, expense reports. The kind of paperwork she used to assign to junior analysts at Lawson Enterprises. "I can do it in 1. Confident. Qualified. Rhonda smiled slightly. "You know why I'm giving you this, right? It's not because I like you. It's because inmates who are useful stay out of trouble. And I need you to stay out of trouble." "Why?" "Because you're the only one keeping this place from imploding." Rhonda stood, moving to the window that overlooked the yard. 6 months ago, we had a riot every other week. Guards getting hurt. Inmates getting killed. The warden was ready to bring in the state police, lock us down permanently. But since you started negotiating, violence is down 40%. Medical incidents are down 30. Even commissary complaints dropped. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it because you're smart enough to realize that chaos doesn't serve your goals. Rhonda turned back. But here's what you need to understand. My job is to maintain order. Your job is to survive. Right now, those jobs align. But if they ever don't, I'll throw you in the hole so fast you won't have time to negotiate. Understood? Good. Now get out and have those forms on my desk by tomorrow morning. Miranda stood, but hesitated at the door. Captain, why do you really trust me? Rhonda considered the question. Because you're the only inmate in here who thinks like someone on the outside. You plan. You calculate. You understand that power isn't about strength. It's about systems. And systems can be controlled. She paused. Just remember, systems can also collapse. Don't get cocky. The prison library was a joke. 3 shelves of outdated romance novels, religious texts, and GED study guides. But tucked in the back, behind a water-damaged copy of the complete works of Shakespeare, Miranda found what she needed. Legal texts. Old, marked up, some with pages missing, but comprehensive enough. Criminal procedure, evidence law, appeals process. She checked them out. A privilege she'd earned through good behavior and Rhonda's quiet approval, and spent her evenings in her cell, reading by the dim light that never quite went out. Rosa would fall asleep to the sound of Miranda turning pages, muttering legal terms under her breath. You really think you're getting out on appeal? Rosa asked one night. No, Miranda said without looking up. Appeals take years, cost money I don't have, require evidence that's been destroyed. Then why are you studying? Because when I walk out of here in 9 years, I need to understand how the system works, how they used it to destroy me, how I can use it to destroy them. Rosa was quiet for a moment. You scare me sometimes, you know that? Good. Miranda turned a page. Fear means respect, and respect means survival. But alone late at night, Miranda would close the books and stare at the concrete ceiling. She'd think about her father's face in the courtroom, Pam's smile, the empire they'd stolen. I'm learning, adapting, becoming something they never expected. And when I'm ready, I'm coming home. Not as their victim, as their reckoning. Mail call was Thursdays at 3 p.m. Miranda had stopped hoping for letters months ago. Her father never wrote. Pam certainly didn't. The lawyers had moved on to more profitable clients. So when the guard called her name, she almost didn't respond. Lawson, you deaf? Mail. Miranda took the envelope. Plain white. No return address. Postmark from the city. But the handwriting was unfamiliar. Neat, masculine, purposeful. She opened it carefully, aware that other inmates were watching. Mail meant connections. Connections meant value. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Dear Ms. Lawson, my name is Devin. I'm a volunteer counselor at St. Riverton. Though we haven't met formally, I've been observing the changes in the prison population over the past 6 months. The decrease in violence, the improved morale, the sense of order where there was once only chaos. I know you're responsible. I also know your case. I've read the trial transcripts, the evidence reports, the media coverage. I know what they say you did, but I also know what falsified evidence looks like. I've seen it before in my own family and my own life. And your case has all the hallmarks of a frame job. I'm not writing to offer false hope. I'm writing because I believe in justice. Real justice. Not the kind that's bought with influence and destroyed with lies. If you're interested in talking, really talking, not the surface-level counseling sessions I'm supposed to conduct, I'll be in the Visitation Center next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Ask for me by name. Your choice whether to come. Either way, know this. You're not alone. You're not forgotten. And you're not the person they say you are. Respectfully, Devin James. Miranda read the letter 3 times. Devin James. The name meant nothing to her. She'd never heard of him. Never met anyone with that last name in her social circles. But something about the letter felt genuine. Not pity. Not curiosity. Recognition. He knows I was framed. He believes me. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her uniform pocket. Rosa watched from her bunk. Good news. Maybe. From whom? Someone who might be an ally. Miranda climbed onto her bunk. Or a trap. You gonna meet him? Miranda stared at the ceiling, her mind calculating risks and rewards, possibilities and dangers. A volunteer counselor, access to the outside, knowledge of my case, believes in justice. Could be legitimate. Could be someone Pam sent to gather information. Could be anything. Yes, she said finally. I'm going to meet him. Why? Because in here, allies are currency, and I need to know if he's worth investing in. The visitation center was a large room with tables bolted to the floor, chairs on either side, guards stationed at intervals. Inmates sat across from family members, lawyers, the occasional friend who hadn't abandoned them. Miranda entered in her royal blue uniform, pressed as well as prison laundry allowed, her hair pulled back, her posture straight. She'd learned that presentation mattered, especially in here. Lawson, table 7, the guard said. She walked across the room, aware of eyes tracking her. She'd become a figure of interest in St. Riverton. The woman who sat in the broken chair, who negotiated peace, who read law books until midnight. At table 7 sat a man in his early 30s, dark hair, sharp features, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt. He looked up as she approached, his expression neutral, but his eyes intelligent, calculating, like he was assessing her the same way she was assessing him. Miranda Lawson, he said, standing slightly. Thank you for coming. Devin James. She sat down across from him. You wrote me a very interesting letter. I wrote you an honest letter. Honesty is rare in my life. I imagine it is. He leaned back slightly, giving her space. I'll be direct. I volunteer here because I believe in rehabilitation. But I also believe in truth. And your case doesn't smell like truth. Why do you care? Because I know what it's like to be destroyed by people you trust. His voice carried a weight she recognized. My family. Let's just say we understand betrayal. And when I saw your trial transcripts, I saw the same patterns. Evidence too perfect. Witnesses too rehearsed. A conviction too convenient. Miranda studied him. You said your name is Devin James. Should I know that name? No, I keep a low profile. But my uncle's name you might recognize. Trevor James. Miranda's breath caught. Trevor James, as in the Phillies James Group. The same. The Phillies James Group, one of the largest financial conglomerates in the country. Rivals to the Lawson Empire. Enemies, if the whispered boardroom conversations had been accurate. Why would the James family help me? Because my uncle doesn't forget his enemies. And the Lawsons? They nearly destroyed us in a merger battle 15 years ago. My uncle's been waiting for payback ever since. Devin leaned forward. But that's his vendetta. Mine is different. I believe you were framed, and I want to help prove it. Why? Because I'm tired of watching powerful families bury innocent people. Miranda wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the first person in a year who'd looked at her and seen something other than a criminal. But trust was expensive, and she'd already paid that price once. If you want to help me, she said carefully, I need more than belief. I need evidence. Real evidence. The kind that was destroyed or hidden. I know, and I'm working on it. Devin pulled out a folder. Thin, barely anything inside. This is what I've found so far. Security footage, timestamps that don't match the official record. A witness who recanted her testimony 6 months after your trial. Financial records showing your sister made unusual purchases around the time of your grandfather's poisoning. Miranda's heart hammered. You found that? I'm good at research, and I have resources. Why are you doing this? Because someone should. He slid the folder across the table. Read it. Think about it. And if you want my help, real help, I'll be back next month. And if I don't, then I respect your choice and leave you alone. Miranda took the folder, her hand steady despite the storm raging inside her. This could change everything. Or it could be another trap. I'll read it, she said, and I'll decide. That's all I ask. Miranda lay on her bunk, the folder open on her chest, reading by the dim light. security footage, witness statements, financial transactions, small pieces, fragments, but fragments could become evidence. Evidence could become appeals. Appeals could become freedom. Devin James believes me. The James family wants revenge on the Lawsons, and I'm the key to both. You trust him? Rosa asked from below. I don't trust anyone. Smart, but I can use him. Even smarter. Miranda closed the folder and stared at the ceiling, at the water stains that had become her constellations, her maps, her vision of the future. They think I'm trapped in here, building a little kingdom in a concrete cage. They're wrong. I'm not building a kingdom. I'm building an army. And when the gates open, I'm walking out as someone they never expected. Someone who learned to rule in hell. Someone who's coming for her throne. 6 months after the riot, Miranda Lawson sat on a broken chair in the prison yard, her royal blue uniform pressed and tailored, her posture regal, her eyes calculating. Around her, inmates listened. Guards watched. Alliances formed. She'd organized the black market, brokered peace between gangs, gained the trust of Captain Rhonda, started studying law, like her freedom depended on it, because it did. And now, a man named Devin James had appeared with proof that she'd been framed, with resources, with connections, with revenge. The prison queen wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing for war. And when the time came, the Lawson family would learn what happened when you tried to bury someone who refused to stay dead. The broken chair had been salvaged from the maintenance shed, metal frame bent, seat cracked down the middle, one leg shorter than the others. Someone had welded it back together, reinforced it with scrap metal, and painted it with stolen spray paint. It sat in the northwest corner of the yard, positioned against the concrete wall where the afternoon sun created a pocket of warmth. And Miranda Lawson sat on it like a throne, her royal blue uniform, the same one every inmate wore, somehow looked different on her now. She'd tailored it herself using thread bartered from the sewing shop, taking the waist, cuffing the sleeves, just so. It fit her like it was made for her, like it was a choice, not a sentence. Around her, 7 women stood or sat on the ground, listening. The commissary shipment comes in Friday, Miranda said, her voice calm, measured. Tanya, your crew gets first pick on cigarettes and coffee. East Side gets hygiene supplies and batteries. Neutral Zone gets whatever's left, distributed evenly. Tanya, arms crossed, nodded slowly. And if East Side tries to skim, they won't. Miranda's eyes shifted to Keisha, who stood to the right, her posture defensive but not hostile. Because Keisha knows that skimming means we go back to riots. And riots mean lockdowns. And lockdowns mean nobody eats. Keisha's jaw tightened. You're putting a lot of faith in a system that benefits your side more than mine. My side? Miranda leaned forward slightly. I don't have side. I have order. And order benefits everyone. Easy for you to say when you're sitting in the chair. Then challenge me for it. The yard went quiet. Even the basketball game on the far court seemed to pause. Keisha stared at Miranda, weighing the challenge. 6 months ago, she would have lunged, would have fought for dominance. But 6 months ago, Miranda hadn't brokered 3 separate peace agreements, hadn't prevented 2 riots, hadn't earned the quiet respect of even the guards. I'm not challenging you, Keisha said finally. Not today. Then we have a deal. Miranda gestured to Rosa, who'd been taking notes on a scrap of paper, recording agreements, tracking debts, maintaining the delicate web of alliances that kept St. Riverton from tearing itself apart. Friday, 2 p.m., commissary distribution. Everyone brings their lists. We sort it out before the guards process anything. Clean, efficient, no blood. The women dispersed, each returning to their respective territories. All except Tanya, who lingered. You know this won't last forever, she said quietly. Eventually, someone's going to get ambitious. Someone's going to try to take your chair. Let them try. You got a plan for that? Miranda smiled, not the polished smile of the heiress she used to be, but something sharper, more dangerous. I always have a plan. The den operated out of cell block D, in a storage room that had been abandoned after a pipe burst 3 years ago. Officially, it was condemned. Unofficially, it was the economic heart of St. Riverton. Miranda walked through the door with Rosa at her side. Inside, the room had been transformed. Shelves made from stolen plywood, inventory organized by category. A makeshift desk cobbled together from cafeteria tables. Tanya's second in command, a woman named Letitia, sat at the desk, counting cigarettes. "Lawson," she said without looking up, "what brings you to our humble establishment?" "A proposition." "We don't need propositions. We need product. What if I could double your inventory?" Now, Letitia looked up. "I'm listening." Miranda pulled out a folded piece of paper, a diagram she'd drawn during her hour in the library. It showed the prison's supply chain, how goods came in through the loading dock, how they were processed through the main storage facility, how they were distributed to various departments. You're getting your supplies by stealing from commissary and cutting deals with sympathetic guards. It works, but it's inefficient. High risk, low reward. And you have a better way? I do. Miranda pointed to a specific section of the diagram. The medical wing orders supplies monthly. Bandages, soap, basic medications. Most of it goes unused because the budget's inflated to account for waste. But that waste doesn't disappear. It gets stored in a secondary closet that nobody monitors. Letitia studied the diagram. "How do you know this?" "Because I've been helping Captain Rhonda with inventory audits. She trusts me with paperwork now." "And you want what in exchange for this information?" 15% of everything that comes through the Denver. Not for me, for the neutral zone. The women who aren't in gangs, who can't afford protection, who get preyed on. Letitia laughed. "You want us to pay a tax to help the weak? That's bad business." "No," Miranda said calmly. "It's good strategy. Right now, neutral women are desperate. Desperate people cause problems. They steal, they fight, they attract guard attention. But if they're taken care of, they become allies. They keep quiet. They provide cover." Letitia looked at Rosa. "Is she always like this?" Rosa shrugged. "She's exhausting." "Fine," Letitia said. 15%. But you set up the supply line. You take the risk. We get the reward." "Agreed." Miranda turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. I need access to law books. Real ones. Not the stripped-down versions in the prison library." "Law books? What for?" "My education." Letitia studied her for a long moment. "You planning appeal?" "I'm planning for the future. Tanya was right about you. You're not trying to survive anymore. You're trying to build something. Is that a problem?" "Nah." Letitia smiled. "Just don't forget who helped you build it." Captain Rhonda's office was small, cluttered with paperwork and old coffee mugs. She looked up as Miranda entered, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Right on time. You ready to explain why last week's medical inventory came up 20 units short?" Miranda sat, placing a folder on the desk. "Because I redistributed them." Rhonda raised an eyebrow. "You redistributed prison medical supplies. And used supplies, expired within 3 months, sitting in a closet while inmates in C Block were treating infections with hand soap. That's theft. That's logistics." Rhonda leaned back in her chair, studying Miranda with the same calculating expression she'd worn since the riot. "You know what you are, Lawson? You're a problem solver. Annoying as hell, but effective." "Thank you." It wasn't a compliment. Rhonda pulled out a stack of forms. "But since you're so good at solving problems, maybe you can help me with this. Budget reconciliation for the commissary. Due Friday. Normally takes me 3 days. Think you can do it in 2. Miranda took the stack. The forms were dense. Requisition orders, inventory sheets, expense reports. The kind of paperwork she used to assign to junior analysts at Lawson Enterprises. "I can do it in 1. Confident. Qualified." Rhonda smiled slightly. "You know why I'm giving you this, right? It's not because I like you. It's because inmates who are useful stay out of trouble. And I need you to stay out of trouble." "Why?" "Because you're the only one keeping this place from imploding." Rhonda stood, moving to the window that overlooked the yard. 6 months ago, We had a riot every other week. Guards getting hurt. Inmates getting killed. The warden was ready to bring in the state police, lock us down permanently. But since you started negotiating, violence is down 40%. Medical incidents are down 30%. Even commissary complaints dropped. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it because you're smart enough to realize that chaos doesn't serve her goals. Rhonda turned back. But here's what you need to understand. My job is to maintain order. Your job is to survive. Right now, those jobs align. But if they ever don't, I'll throw you in the hole so fast you won't have time to negotiate. Understood? Good. Now get out and have those forms on my desk by tomorrow morning. Miranda stood, but hesitated at the door. Captain, why do you really trust me? Rhonda considered the question. Because you're the only inmate in here who thinks like someone on the outside. You plan. You calculate. You understand that power isn't about strength. It's about systems. And systems can be controlled. She paused. Just remember, systems can also collapse. Don't get cocky. The prison library was a joke. 3 shelves of outdated romance novels, religious texts, and GED study guides. But tucked in the back, behind a water-damaged copy of the complete works of Shakespeare, Miranda found what she needed. Legal texts. Old, marked up. Some with pages missing, but comprehensive enough. Criminal procedure. Evidence law. Appeals process. She checked them out. A privilege she'd earned through good behavior and Rhonda's quiet approval, and spent her evenings in her cell, reading by the dim light that never quite went out. Rosa would fall asleep to the sound of Miranda turning pages, muttering legal terms under her breath. You really think you're getting out on appeal? Rosa asked one night. No, Miranda said, without looking up. Appeals take years. Cost money I don't have. Require evidence that's been destroyed. Then why are you studying? Because when I walk out of here in 9 years, I need to understand how the system works, how they used it to destroy me, how I can use it to destroy them. Rosa was quiet for a moment. You scare me sometimes, do you know that? Good. Miranda turned a page. Fear means respect, and respect means survival. But alone late at night, Miranda would close the books and stare at the concrete ceiling. She'd think about her father's face in the courtroom. Pam's smile. The empire they'd stolen. I'm learning, adapting, becoming something they never expected. And when I'm ready, I'm coming home. Not as their victim, as their reckoning. Mail call was Thursdays at 3 p.m. Miranda had stopped hoping for letters months ago. Her father never wrote. Pam certainly didn't. The lawyers had moved on to more profitable clients. So when the guard called her name, she almost didn't respond. Lawson, you deaf? Mail. Miranda took the envelope. Plain white. No return address. Postmark from the city. But the handwriting was unfamiliar. Neat, masculine, purposeful. She opened it carefully, aware that other inmates were watching. Mail meant connections. Connections meant value. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Dear Ms. Lawson, my name is Deb. I'm a volunteer counselor at St. Riverton. Though we haven't met formally, I've been observing the changes in the prison population over the past 6 months, the decrease in violence, the improved morale, the sense of order where there was once only chaos. I know you're responsible. I also know your case. I've read the trial transcripts, the evidence reports, the media coverage. I know what they say you did, but I also know what falsified evidence looks like. I've seen it before in my own family and my own life. And your case has all the hallmarks of a frame job. I'm not writing to offer false hope. I'm writing because I believe in justice. Real justice. Not the kind that's bought with influence and destroyed with lies. If you're interested in talking, really talking, not the surface-level counseling sessions I'm supposed to conduct, I'll be in the Visitation Center next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Ask for me by name. Your choice whether to come. Either way, know this. You're not alone. You're not forgotten. And you're not the person they say you are. Respectfully, Devin James. Miranda read the letter 3 times. Devin James. The name meant nothing to her. She'd never heard of him, never met anyone with that last name in her social circles. But something about the letter felt Genuine. Not pity. Not curiosity. Recognition. He knows I was framed. He believes me. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her uniform pocket. Rosa watched from her bunk. Good news. Maybe. From who? Someone who might be an ally. Miranda climbed onto her bunk. Or a trap. You gonna meet him? Miranda stared at the ceiling, her mind calculating risks and rewards, possibilities and dangers. A volunteer counselor, access to the outside, knowledge of my case, believes in justice, could be legitimate, could be someone Pam sent to gather information, could be anything. Yes, she said finally. I'm going to meet him. Why? Because in here, allies are currency, and I need to know if he's worth investing in. The visitation center was a large room with tables bolted to the floor, chairs on either side, guards stationed at intervals. Inmates sat across from family members, lawyers, the occasional friend who hadn't abandoned them. Miranda entered in her royal blue uniform, pressed as well as prison laundry allowed, her hair pulled back, her posture straight. She'd learned that presentation mattered, especially in here. Lawson, table 7, the guard said. She walked across the room, aware of eyes tracking her. She'd become a figure of interest in St. Riverton. The woman who sat in the broken chair, who negotiated peace, who read law books until midnight. At table 7 sat a man in his early 30s. Dark hair, sharp features, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt. He looked up as she approached, his expression neutral, but his eyes intelligent, calculating, like he was assessing her the same way she was assessing him. Miranda Lawson, he said, standing slightly. Thank you for coming. Devin James. She sat down across from him. You wrote me a very interesting letter. I wrote you an honest letter. Honesty is rare in my life. I imagine it is. He leaned back slightly, giving her space. I'll be direct. I volunteer here because I believe in rehabilitation, but I also believe in truth. And your case doesn't smell like truth. Why do you care? Because I know what it's like to be destroyed by people you trust. His voice carried a weight she recognized. My family. Let's just say we understand betrayal. And when I saw your trial transcripts, I saw the same patterns. Evidence too perfect. Witnesses too rehearsed. A conviction too convenient. Miranda studied him. You said your name is Devin James. Should I know that name? No, I keep a low profile. But my uncle's name you might recognize. Trevor James. Miranda's breath caught. Trevor James, as in the Phillies James Group. The same. The Phillies James Group, one of the largest financial conglomerates in the country. Rivals to the Lawson Empire. Enemies if the whispered boardroom conversations had been accurate. Why would the James family help me? Because my uncle doesn't forget his enemies. And the Lawsons? They nearly destroyed us in a merger battle 15 years ago. My uncle's been waiting for payback ever since. Devin leaned forward. But that's his vendetta. Mine is different. I believe you were framed, and I want to help prove it. Why? Because I'm tired of watching powerful families bury innocent people. Miranda wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the first person in a year who'd looked at her and seen something other than a criminal. But trust was expensive, and she'd already paid that price once. If you want to help me, she said carefully, I need more than belief. I need evidence. Real evidence. The kind that was destroyed or hidden. I know, and I'm working on it. Devin pulled out a folder. Thin, barely anything inside. This is what I've found so far. Security footage, timestamps that don't match the official record. A witness who recanted her testimony 6 months after your trial. Financial records showing your sister made unusual purchases around the time of your grandfather's poisoning. Miranda's heart hammered. You found that. I'm good at research, and I have resources. Why are you doing this? Because someone should. He slid the folder across the table. Read it. Think about it. And if you want my help, real help, I'll be back next month. And if I don't, then I'll respect your choice and leave you alone. Miranda took the folder, her hand steady despite the storm raging inside her. This could change everything, or it could be another trap. "I'll read it," she said, "and I'll decide. That's all I ask." Miranda lay on her bunk, the folder open on her chest, reading by the dim light. Security footage, witness statements, financial transactions, small pieces, fragments, but fragments could become evidence. Evidence could become appeals. Appeals could become freedom. Devin James believes me. The James family wants revenge on the Lawsons, and I'm the key to both. You trust him? Rosa asked from below. I don't trust anyone. Smart, but I can use him. Even smarter. Miranda closed the folder and stared at the ceiling, at the water stains that had become her constellations, her maps, her vision of the future. They think I'm trapped in here, building a little kingdom in a concrete cage. They're wrong. I'm not building kingdom. I'm building an army. And when the gates open, I'm walking out as someone they never expected. Someone who learned to rule in hell. Someone who's coming for her throne. 6 months after the riot, Miranda Lawson sat on a broken chair in the prison yard, her royal blue uniform pressed and tailored, her posture regal, her eyes calculating. Around her, inmates listened. Guards watched. Alliances formed. She'd organized the black market, brokered peace between gangs, gained the trust of Captain Rhonda, started studying law like her freedom depended on it, because it did. And now, a man named Devin James had appeared with proof that she'd been framed, with resources, with connections, with revenge. The prison queen wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing for war. And when the time came, the Lawson family would learn what happened when you tried to bury someone who refused to stay dead. Miranda sat on her chair in the yard, no longer broken. Someone had reinforced it with better welding, reading through Rhonda's latest inventory reports. Around her, the usual crowd gathered. Rosa taking notes, 2 of Tanya's lieutenants discussing distribution schedules, a handful of neutral inmates waiting for arbitration on disputes. The prison had rhythm now. Order. Miranda's order. Mail call. The guard's voice echoed across the yard. Women abandoned their activities, moving toward the distribution table, with varying degrees of hope and desperation. Mail meant connection to the outside world. It meant someone remembered you existed. Miranda rarely bothered anymore. Devin wrote monthly, coded letters discussing his research on corporate fraud cases, carefully worded to pass inspection, but clear enough for Miranda to understand his progress. Beyond that, silence. Lawson. Miranda looked up, surprised. The guard held out an envelope. Thin, cheap paper, the kind bought at grocery stores. The handwriting was shaky, uncertain, like the writer's hand had trembled with every letter. No return address. Postmarked from a small town Miranda vaguely recognized. Somewhere provincial, hours outside the city. She took it, feeling the weight of eyes on her. Mail was currency. Information was power. And unexpected letters meant either opportunity or danger. Rosa handled the afternoon session. Miranda said, standing. I'll be in my cell. Everything okay? I'll know in 5 minutes. Miranda sat on her bunk, the letter unopened in her hands. The handwriting on the envelope stirred something. A memory just out of reach, like a name you knew but couldn't quite place. She opened it carefully. Inside, 3 pages of the same trembling handwriting. The paper was cheap, some sections smudged as if tears had fallen while writing. Dear Miss Miranda, you don't know me, but I know you. My name is Elena Ruiz. I worked for the Lawson family for 23 years. Started in the kitchen. Eventually became head housekeeper. I left 3 years ago, right after your trial. Couldn't stomach what I'd seen anymore. I should have spoken up then. Should have testified. But they scared me. Your stepmother, Mrs. Eleanor Lawson. She made it clear what would happen if I talked. Lost job. Lost references. Maybe worse. But I'm dying now. Cancer. 6 months, maybe less. And I can't die with this secret. Miss Miranda, you need to know the truth. Pam Lawson is not your father's daughter. She's not a Lawson at all. Miranda's hand stilled. The words blurred, then focused, then blurred again. Not a Lawson. She forced herself to keep reading. It happened before you were born. Your stepmother. Well, she wasn't your stepmother then. She was just Eleanor Hastings, the woman your father was seeing after your mother passed. She got pregnant. But the father wasn't Trevor Lawson. It was Marcus, the chauffeur. Eleanor panicked. She was close to securing marriage to your father, to the Lawson fortune. And a bastard child would ruin everything. So she made a plan. She convinced Marcus's wife, the housekeeper at the time, Carmen Ortiz, to help her. They switched the babies. You were born at the Lawson estate with the best doctors money could buy. Pam was born in a provincial hospital, Marcus and Carmen's child. But when the nurses brought the babies back, Eleanor switched them. She raised Pam as a Lawson, and you were supposed to be sent away, given to some distant relative and forgotten. But your grandfather, Trevor III, he suspected something. He demanded a DNA test, not officially, just between him and the doctor, when came back proving you were his biological granddaughter. He insisted you be brought back, insisted you be raised as a Lawson. Eleanor had no choice. She couldn't refuse without revealing her scheme. So she brought you back, raised you as the second daughter, and spent 2 decades making sure Pam was positioned as the favorite child. Your father never knew. Still doesn't know. Only Eleanor and me and Marcus and Carmen. Though they're both dead now. Convenient accidents within months of each other. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know. You're the real heiress. The only legitimate Lawson daughter. Everything that's yours, the company, the fortune. The name, Pam stole it. I can't testify. I'm too sick and I'm scared. But I had to tell you. I'm so sorry, Miss Miranda, for everything, for not speaking up sooner. May God forgive me. Elena Ruiz. Miranda read the letter 3 times, then a 4th. Then she stood, walked to the cell door, and locked it from the inside. A privilege earned through good behavior and Rhonda's quiet approval. She made it to the sink before her knees gave out. That night, during evening showers, Miranda stood under the cold spray, fully clothed, letting water soak through her uniform. Other inmates gave her space. The prison queen's emotional state was nobody's business unless she chose to make it so. Pam is not your father's daughter. The words echoed through her skull, reshaping everything she'd ever known. I'm the only legitimate Lawson, the only real heir, and they sent me to prison for crimes I didn't commit while the imposter took my name. Laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep, bitter, harsh, edged with hysteria. Miranda pressed her hand against the shower wall, water streaming down her face, unable to tell if she was crying or just drowning. So I was the real one all along, she whispered to the tiles. The rightful heir, the legitimate daughter. And they threw me away like garbage. The laughter grew louder, echoing off concrete walls. Lawson, you okay in there? A guard's voice, concerned, but not intervening. They'd learned to let Miranda work through things on her own terms. Fine, she called back. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. She was furious. Not the hot, impulsive fury that led to riots. The cold, calculating fury that built empires and destroyed dynasties. They stole my birthright, my name, my life. And for what? So Eleanor could live in luxury? So Pam could play princess? Miranda turned off the water and stood there, dripping, her reflection visible in the polished steel mirror. The woman looking back was barely recognizable from the heiress who'd walked into St. Riverton 2 years ago. Harder, sharper, scarred, dangerous. Blood lies, she said to her reflection. But power doesn't. That night, lying on her bunk, Miranda's mind drifted through memories she'd buried for years. Age 7. Standing in the Lawson estate garden. Pam had green eyes, bright, striking. Nothing like father's brown or grandfather's blue. Miranda had asked once, "Why don't we look alike?" Eleanor had smiled tightly. "Not all sisters look alike, darling. You got your mother's features. Pam got mine." But Eleanor's eyes were hazel, not green. Age 12. overhearing whispers in the hallway late at night. Father and Eleanor arguing behind closed doors. She's not. Don't say it. She's our daughter. But Miranda is fine where she is. This discussion is over. Age 16. Grandfather pulling Miranda aside at a family dinner, his hand trembling slightly as he gripped hers. You remind me of your grandmother, child. Same fire, same strength. Never forget who you really are. At the time, she thought he meant personality, character. Now she understood. He meant blood. Age 19. Pam's engagement party. Eleanor had introduced her to society's elite as our brilliant eldest daughter, the future of Lawson Enterprises. Miranda had been relegated to the corner, the shy one barely acknowledged. She remembered Pam's smile that night, triumphant, possessive, like she'd won something Miranda hadn't realized was a competition. Age 23. The last conversation with grandfather before the poisoning. Miranda, I need you to promise me something. If anything happens to me, anything suspicious, you investigate. You don't trust anyone. Not Eleanor, not even your father. You dig until you find the truth. Grandfather, you're being dramatic. Promise me. She promised. And 2 weeks later, he was dead. The memories crashed over her like waves, each one recontextualizing her entire life. He knew. Grandfather knew Pam wasn't legitimate. That's why he wanted me to investigate. That's why he was poisoned. He was protecting the truth. And they killed him for it. Rose's voice drifted up from the lower bunk. You've been quiet all evening. The letter that bad? Worse. It changed everything. Want to talk about it? Not yet. Miranda stared at the ceiling. But soon, the whole world will be talking about it. 2 weeks later, during their monthly meeting, Miranda slid the letter across the table. Devin read it carefully, his expression darkening with each line. Jesus, he breathed. If this is true, it is. How can you be sure? Because it explains everything. My grandfather's insistence that I be raised as a Lawson despite Eleanor's protests. The way Pam was always favored. The timing of my parents' deaths. My mother when I was an infant. Then the chauffeur and his wife years later. All convenient. All controlled. Devin leaned back, his mind visibly working through implications. This changes the entire case. If Pam isn't Trevor Lawson's biological daughter, she has no legal right to the inheritance, no right to the company. Everything she's taken was mine by blood. We need to verify this. DNA evidence, birth records, hospital documentation. Can you get it? I can try, but it won't be easy. These records are decades old. If Eleanor covered her tracks, she did. She's had 25 years to erase evidence. Miranda's voice was steady, cold. But people get sloppy. Time makes them confident, and confidence makes them careless. Devin studied her. You've changed since we first met. You're not just surviving anymore. No, I'm strategizing. For what? For the moment I walk out of here. Miranda's eyes locked with his. And when I do, Pam Lawson, if that's even her real name, is going to wish I'd stayed buried. I'll start digging into birth records, hospital archives, find the doctor who did that DNA test for your grandfather. He's probably dead by now, or paid off. Maybe. But records don't die. Paper trails don't disappear completely. Someone somewhere kept the truth. Devin closed the folder. I'll find it, Miranda. I promise. Don't promise. Just do it. While Miranda schemed in prison, Pam thrived in the world she'd stolen. The television in the common room showed her on the evening news, standing outside Lawson Enterprises headquarters, flanked by board members, smiling that perfect smile Miranda had once envied. Today marks a new era for Lawson Enterprises, Pam said to the cameras, her voice smooth, practiced. Under my leadership, we're expanding into new markets, forging partnerships that will secure our position for generations. The reporter asked, your sister, Miranda Lawson, remains in prison for attempted murder and embezzlement. Some say you succeeded by stepping on her legacy. How do you respond? Pam's expression shifted. Practice sadness. Rehearse grief. Miranda made her choices. Terrible choices that hurt our family deeply. But I've chosen to honor our grandfather's memory by proving that the Lawson name stands for integrity and excellence. That's my legacy. Your legacy, Miranda thought, watching from the common room. Bill on my blood. My name. My birthright. You should turn that off, Rosa said quietly beside her. Watching her won't help. Yes, it will. Miranda's voice was ice. It reminds me why I'm building what I'm building. Why I'm learning what I'm learning. Why I'm becoming what I'm becoming. On screen, Pam laughed at something a board member said, her hand resting on the podium where grandfather used to stand. She's wearing his watch, the one with the Lawson family crest, the one that should have been mine. 8 more years, Miranda whispered. 8 more years and I'm free. And then I take back everything she stole. Back in her cell, Miranda held Elena's letter over the small flame from a contraband lighter, one of the perks of running the den supply chain. The paper caught fire slowly, edges curling, words disappearing into ash. Why are you burning it? Rosa asked. That's evidence. Evidence can be stolen, confiscated, used against me. Miranda watched the flames consume the trembling handwriting. But memory? Strategy? Cold determination? Those can't be taken. The last corner of the letter blackened and crumbled. Miranda crushed the ashes between her fingers, then washed them down the sink, watching them swirl and disappear. Blood lies, she said softly. Blood says Pam and I are sisters. Blood says she has a right to the Lawson name. She dried her hands, her reflection sharp in the polished steel mirror. But power doesn't lie. Power is earned, built, taken. And when I walk out of here, I won't need blood to prove I'm the rightful heir. What will you need? Miranda smiled, the cold, dangerous smile that had become her signature. An empire of my own. One that makes the Lawson fortune look like pocket change. One built from nothing in the worst place imaginable, by someone who refused to break. She climbed onto her bunk, closing her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Instead, plans formed. Strategies crystallized. The rage that had threatened to consume her in the shower transformed into something more useful. Pam thinks she's won. Father thinks I'm forgotten. Eleanor thinks her secret is safe. They're all wrong. I'm not the broken heiress anymore. I'm not even the prison queen. I'm something new. Something they never anticipated. I'm their reckoning. And I'm patient enough to wait. 3 weeks later, Devin returned with a thin folder. I found something, he said, sliding it across the table. Not the smoking gun yet, but a thread. A provincial hospital, closed 15 years ago. Kept backup records in a storage facility. I bribed the night clerk. Miranda opened the folder. Inside, a birth certificate for Carmen Ortiz's daughter, born the same week as Pam's official birthday. Name listed, Baby Girl Ortiz. The dates match, Miranda said. Exactly. Carmen had a daughter. That daughter would be 25 now, the same age as Pam. Can you prove they're the same person? Not yet, but I'm working on it. Devin leaned forward. I also found something else. The doctor who attended both births. Yours at the Lawson estate. Carmen's at the provincial hospital? His name was Dr. Richard Bellamy. Dead? No. Retired. Living in a coastal town under a new name. Pension funded by an anonymous benefactor. Eleanor bought his silence. Almost certainly. But here's the thing about retired doctors. They keep records. Personal records. Insurance against the people who paid them off. Devin's eyes gleamed. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to get those records. How long? 6 months. Maybe a year. This is delicate work, Miranda. If I push too hard, he'll destroy everything. I have 8 years left on my sentence. Take the time you need. Miranda's voice was steady. But when you find the proof, I want it ironclad. I want documents, medical records, DNA evidence if possible. I want something so undeniable that even my father can't ignore it. You'll have it. Good. Miranda stood. Because when I get out, I'm not just reclaiming my name. I'm destroying everyone who took it from me. That night, Miranda Lawson sat on her throne of broken metal and stolen dignity, watching the prison yard empty as the sun set. She knew the truth now. She was the rightful heir, the legitimate Lawson, the one who should have inherited everything. And Pam, beautiful, perfect favorite Pam, was nothing more than a chauffeur's bastard daughter, propped up by lies and maintained by murder. The revelation could have broken her, should have shattered whatever pieces remained. Instead, it forged her into something harder. Blood had lied to her for 25 years, but power never would. And when she walked out of St. Riverton in 8 years, or maybe sooner, if Devon's investigation bore fruit, she wouldn't reclaim her birthright through legal battles or courtroom drama. She'd take it by force, by strategy, by becoming something so powerful that the Lawson name would seem small in comparison. They'd stolen her identity. She'd build a new one, and it would be glorious. The visitation center had been divided into 2 sections: public tables for family and friends, and private booths for official counseling sessions. The booths were separated by partial walls, not soundproof, but private enough that conversations couldn't be overheard easily. Devon James sat in booth 7, a clipboard in front of him, the official volunteer counselor's smile plastered across his face. Miranda was escorted in by a guard who barely glanced at the scene before moving to the next booth. "You're not supposed to be here," Miranda said quietly, sitting across from him. The words could have been directed at any counselor. Reluctant inmate expressing frustration at mandatory sessions. "Neither are you," Devon replied, his voice pitched low professional. He opened a folder thick with papers and positioned it so the guard's casual observation would show a standard counseling assessment. Inside the folder, underneath blank pages, was evidence. Photographs, documents, a DVD case. "Security footage," Devon said, speaking casually as if discussing her rehabilitation progress. "Took me 6 months to find the archive files. The archives department was going to destroy them, too old, taking up space. I convinced them to let me digitize them first." Miranda's hands trembled slightly. She gripped them together under the table, maintaining her neutral expression. "The timestamp shows Pam entering your grandfather's study at 9:23 p.m. You were in your office until 9:45. The tea was prepared by the housekeeper at 9:20. By 9:25, the poison was already in the cup." How much poison? Enough to kill, but not immediately. It would have taken 30 minutes to an hour for the full effects, giving the real culprit time to create an alibi. Miranda's jaw clenched. She'd known intellectually that Pam had done this. Elena's letter had confirmed it, but seeing it having photographic evidence made the betrayal visceral all over again. "Your stepmother knew," Devon continued, his voice steady, clinical. "She deleted the primary backup files, but her IT person kept a secondary backup. That backup survived. I have the footage." "How did you get these archives?" "I didn't. Not officially. My uncle Trevor James has connections with people in the city's record department. They owed him favors. He called them in." "Why would he do that?" "For me." Devon's eyes met hers across the table. For a moment, the counselor facade dropped. She saw him, really saw him, and recognized the same hunger for justice that burned in her. "For you. For my uncle's vendetta against your family. For the principle that powerful people shouldn't be able to rewrite history with impunity." He smiled slightly. "Also, he likes winning. And destroying the Lawsons? That's his endgame. What do you want in return?" "Nothing. I want justice. I want the truth to matter more than money and influence." "That's naive." "Probably. But I've watched enough injustice in my family's world. I'm tired of it." Devon gathered the folder. "Keep this session on record as a standard counseling appointment. I'll be back next month with more evidence." "Will they trace it? Your uncle's connections?" "Not to me. He's careful, and he's been planning to destroy your family for years. This is just the opening move." Devon stood, signaling the end of the session. Stay strong, Miranda. The truth will matter soon. The letters came through the prison mail system. Official-looking quarterly psychological assessments from the volunteer counseling program. To any guard who bothered to read them, they were boring. Jargon-heavy evaluations of Miranda's progress. Patient demonstrates adaptive coping mechanisms. Social integration is positive. Risk of recidivism is low. But underneath, in the margins and between lines, was a code Devin and Miranda had devised. Simple, elegant, impossible to detect unless you knew to look for it. Letter 1. Patient shows good progress. Her integration into positive social networks underlined. Her integration has helped her develop healthy coping strategies, underlined. Develop. The anger management techniques discussed have proven effective. Translated. Her integration into the prison network. We're developing evidence. The anger you carry is justified. Letter 2. We discussed her future goals. She expressed interest in furthering her education. Underlined. Education? This is a positive sign. Her determination to study legal materials suggests she may have career aspirations in that field. Translated. We discussed your case. Dr. Bellamy is cooperating. He has documentation about the DNA test your grandfather ordered. Letter 3. Her relationships with other inmates have stabilized. She maintains appropriate boundaries while demonstrating leadership qualities underlined. Leadership qualities. Some staff members have expressed concerns about her influence, but overall her presence has improved facility dynamics. Translated. Your power in the prison is secure. Rhonda knows something's happening but won't interfere. Your position is stable. By the 8th letter, Devin had confirmed everything. Dr. Bellamy had kept copies of the DNA test. Eleanor had paid him $500,000 to bury the results. Pam had been planning the poisoning for months, purchasing arsenic through a contact in her sorority, documenting your grandfather's daily routine, timing the theft to implicate you. Everything. All of it. Documented. Provable. Ironclad. Captain Rhonda cornered Miranda in the kitchen, a place they could talk without observation. You're playing with fire, Rhonda said quietly, checking inventory while they spoke. The quarterly counselor reports on you? They're not normal psychological evaluations. How would you know? Because I've been running this facility for 15 years. I know what normal looks like. Rhonda's eyes met hers. You're receiving coded messages. And unless I'm very mistaken, you're sending information out. Would you stop me? No. Rhonda turned back to the inventory. But I'm warning you, if the wrong people notice, it'll bring heat down on this entire operation. The black market, the peace agreements, everything you've built will collapse. I'm not trying to cause problems. I know. You're trying to build a case. Against your family, I'm guessing. Rhonda's voice lowered. I don't care about your vendetta, Lawson, but I do care about order. So be careful. Be very careful. Because if internal affairs gets wind of outside contact, they'll throw you in solitary for a year and investigate me for negligence. I'll be more careful. You better be. Rhonda paused at the door. Also that counselor, Devin James, his uncle is a dangerous man. The James family isn't known for mercy. If you're planning what I think you're planning, understand that aligning with them means blood. Real blood. I know. Do you? Or do you just think you know? Rhonda shook her head. You're smart, Lawson. Don't get comfortable thinking you're smarter than people who've been playing the game longer than you've been alive. Their next meeting came during a library visit, officially unsupervised time for inmates to research legal materials for appeals. Devin was there, shelving books as a volunteer. They made eye contact. A moment passed, waited, electric, dangerous. He sat across from her at a table, pretending to check her reading list while actually sliding a sealed envelope under the stack of law books. Dr. Bellamy's depositions, Devin said quietly. Signed, dated, witnessed. Your grandfather specifically ordered a DNA test because he suspected Eleanor had switched the babies. The results confirmed it. You're the biological granddaughter. Pam's not. Did Eleanor know he knew? She suspected. That's why she moved up the timeline. She needed Pam legally established as the heir before your grandfather could change his will. Miranda's hands clenched on the table. Devon's hand moved across the surface, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth. "I'm going to make this right," he said. "No." Miranda finally looked at him. "I'm going to make this right." Their eyes held for a moment too long. In that moment, something shifted between them, understanding that went beyond words. Two people from opposite worlds, united by the need for justice and the hunger for power. "When you walk out," Devon said quietly, "I'll be waiting with proof. Everything you need to reclaim your life." "No." Miranda's voice was steel. "When I walk out, I'll be waiting with power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need proof because it doesn't ask permission." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not reclaiming the Lawson empire. I'm building something bigger. Something that makes their billions look like pocket change." Miranda's eyes glinted. "Proof is for victims. I'm not a victim anymore." Devon leaned back slightly, reevaluating her. She saw the moment he truly understood what she'd become. Not a woman seeking exoneration. A woman seeking domination. "Your uncle will help with that?" "My uncle will help because it serves him. Destroying the Lawsons has been his obsession. But you..." Devon's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "You're building something different. Something that'll make them look like children playing with blocks. Will that be a problem?" "No. It'll be interesting." A guard walked past. They separated immediately, returning to their roles. Volunteer and inmate, completely unremarkable in their brief interaction. But the words hung in the air. "It'll be interesting." That night, Miranda lay on her bunk, turning over Devon's words in her mind. Proof, power, revenge. Three sides of the same coin. She could use Devon's evidence to exonerate herself, to reclaim her name, to return to the Lawson empire as the rightful heir. It was the logical path, the expected path. But Miranda had spent 3 years learning that expectations were chains. So instead of reclaiming, she would build. Instead of returning to the old world, she would create a new one. One where the Lawson name meant nothing. One where her power eclipsed theirs so completely that their fortunes seemed like spare change. Devon had offered her proof and justice. Miranda had chosen something greater. She'd chosen war. And when she walked out of St. Riverton in 6 years, or maybe sooner, she would bring an army with her, not of inmates and gang leaders, but of strategists and politicians and financial wizards who understood that power wasn't inherited. It was earned, built, seized. And Miranda Lawson had become very good at seizing what she wanted. The television in the common room flickered to life at 9 a.m. Channel 7 News, the morning segment, and there was Pam. She sat in a leather chair in some sleek downtown office, her blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than most inmates made in a year. Across from her, an interviewer with professionally straightened teeth and practiced concern. "Thank you for joining us, Miss Lawson," the interviewer gushed. "Your leadership of Lawson Enterprises has been nothing short of revolutionary. Tell us, how do you manage to carry on after such a personal tragedy?" Pam's expression shifted. Sadness, then strength, then something that might have been genuine concern but looked too rehearsed. "It hasn't been easy," Pam said, her voice trembling slightly. "Losing my grandfather, and then discovering my own sister's crimes. It was devastating. But I realized that the best way to honor his memory was to prove that the Lawson name still stands for integrity." Miranda sat in the corner of the common room, arms crossed, watching with absolute stillness. Around her, other inmates had gathered. Word had spread that something was happening on television, something connected to the prison queen. Rosa sat beside her, one eyebrow raised. "She's good, really good. If I didn't know better, I'd believe her. That's why she got away with it for so long," Miranda replied quietly. On screen, Pam continued her performance. "I've implemented new policies, restructured the board, brought in fresh talent. Within 2 years, Lawson Enterprises' profit margins have increased by 30%. We're not just surviving, we're thriving." The interviewer leaned forward. Some critics say you've been too aggressive in your expansion, that you're taking unnecessary risks. Risk is necessary for growth, Pam said smoothly. My grandfather always said that. Miranda's hands clenched into fists. She watched Pam's smug smile, heard the lies flowing like honey, saw the world buying it all. And she smiled, not the polished smile of the heiress, the cold, predatory smile of someone who could see the future. Relax, Rosa whispered. Whatever you're planning, it's about to happen. I can feel it. Not yet, Miranda said. But soon. It started subtle. A business article in the financial section of the Times. Lawson Enterprises stock drops 3% on analyst concerns. Then another. Competitors poach Lawson's Asian market share. Then, Phillies James Group makes hostile bid for Lawson Properties. The Phillies James Group, Trevor James's empire, had been circling Lawson Enterprises for months, waiting, assessing, and now, with coordinated precision, they struck. They bought up shares on the open market. They leveraged their own assets to secure loans that allowed them to bid on Lawson Properties. They raided the company's key accounts, offering clients better terms, better service, better everything. It was systematic, ruthless, designed to crush. Within 3 weeks, Lawson Enterprises stock had dropped 20%. Within 2 months, it had lost half its value. The information filtered into St. Riverton through visitors, through news that smuggled inmates watched on contraband phones, through the endless prison grapevine. By the 3rd week, every inmate knew what was happening. Your family's going down. One of Tanya's crew told Miranda in the yard. The news is saying the CEO of Lawson Enterprises is facing embezzlement charges. Multiple board members have been arrested. Who's the CEO? Miranda asked, though she already knew the answer. Your sister, the Lawson girl who framed you. A smile played at Miranda's lips. Is she now? Word spread. The Queen's revenge has begun. Outside forces are taking down the family that destroyed her. The prison queen's legend grew. Women who'd never spoken to her suddenly sought her out, as if her vendetta validated their own. She became larger than life, a symbol of justice, of victory, of the powerful finally falling. Tanya pulled her aside one evening. Devin James stopped by, wanted me to tell you it's time. Time for what? The next phase, the real destruction. Pam stood in the boardroom of Lawson Enterprises, a building her father had built, which she'd stolen, which was now being dismantled brick by brick. Around her, board members reviewed financial reports, their expressions grim. We're hemorrhaging money, one said. The Phillies James Group has secured 3 of our major contracts. Our Asian operations are in free fall. What about our reserves? Pam asked, her voice tight. Frozen, pending investigation. The SEC issued a subpoena this morning. Eleanor had already fled the country, a flight to Monaco, using an offshore account no one knew about. She'd taken as much as she could carry and disappeared. Pam was alone, and that's when her husband, Richard Sinclair III, a man she'd married for connections and status, filed for divorce. The papers hit simultaneously with a leaked recording. Richard's voice, discussing with a friend how he'd married Pam because she was worth billions, and now she was worth nothing. She was interesting when she had money. Now she's just desperate. I'm out. The recording went viral within hours. By evening, Pam sat in the penthouse apartment, an apartment no longer hers, as it was part of the marital estate, watching her world collapse on every screen simultaneously. Financial channels declared Lawson Enterprises in crisis. Celebrity gossip outlets ran headlines. Fall in fortune, from heiress to pariah. News anchors discussed the SEC investigation with barely concealed glee. And worst of all, a video appeared online. Security footage, time-stamped, clear as day. Pam, at age 25, entering her grandfather's study. Pam, spiking his tea with arsenic purchased under fake name. Pam, leaving the study minutes before the old man collapsed. Then later footage. Eleanor, deleting files from the security backup system. The evidence was irrefutable. Within hours, federal agents were at Pam's door with arrest warrants. News broke during evening count. Channel 7 News special report. Lawson family arrested. Evidence emerges in decades-old poisoning case. The television showed Pam being let out of the penthouse in handcuffs, her face a mask of shock and denial. Behind her, Eleanor, extradited from Monaco, equally stunned. Reporters screamed questions. Did you poison your grandfather? Were you jealous of your sister? How do you respond to accusations of embezzlement? Pam's lawyer pushed through the crowd, but there was nothing he could say. The evidence was public. The video was everywhere. The case was solid. The camera cut to the courthouse, where a judge set bail at $5 million each. Neither woman could afford it. They were detained pending trial. The prison erupted, not in riot, in celebration. Women cheered. They hugged each other. Some danced. The prison queen had been vindicated before the entire world. Miranda watched from her cell, her expression unreadable. Rosa stood beside her. They're going down. Your family's going to prison. My family, Miranda said quietly, never saw me as family, so I never saw them as anything but obstacles. What happens now? Now, we wait. The trial will take months, years probably, and during that time, Devin will make sure every piece of evidence is documented, every crime exposed. And after, Miranda turned to face her cellmate. After, I walk out of here, and I become everything they feared. Captain Rhonda appeared at Miranda's cell around 2 a.m. Your parole hearing got expedited, she said, sliding a folder through the bars. With your sister's arrest and the revelation that you were framed, the review board approved it this morning. You're being released in 48 hours. Miranda took the folder, her release papers, her new identity packet, everything necessary to re-enter the world. Rhonda, don't thank me. Thank Devin James and his uncle's vendetta. Rhonda smiled slightly. But before you go, I want you to know something. You came here broken. You leave here forged. You became the strongest person in this facility not because of power, but because of strategy. Will you keep the peace after I'm gone? I'll try, but I'll need to promote someone. Tanya's capable, but she's too angry. Keisha's too volatile. Rhonda paused. Any recommendations? Rosa. She's smart, pragmatic, and she understands the balance between mercy and strength. Rhonda nodded. I'll consider it. She started to leave, then turned back. One more thing. You're not the first broken person I've seen walk through those gates. But you're the first one who decided to build something instead of just survive. Don't lose that. Don't become what you're fighting against. I won't. Yes, you will. Eventually. That's what power does. It corrupts. Just try to remember who you were before it consumed you. 48 hours later, Miranda Lawson stood at the gates of St. Riverton Correctional Facility. Behind her, the prison, her prison, where she'd spent 5 years building an empire in concrete and steel. Ahead, the world she was about to conquer. Rhonda stood at the gate, uniform pressed, expression unreadable. But there was something in her eyes. Respect, recognition, perhaps a hint of fear. Long live the Queen, Rhonda said quietly. Miranda smiled, that cold, dangerous smile that had become her signature. The Queen is dead, she replied. What comes next is something far more dangerous. She stepped through the gates into sunlight she hadn't felt in 5 years. Free, but not freed. Her family was imprisoned. The Lawson Empire was collapsing. The truth was finally known. And yet, Miranda Lawson felt no triumph. Only hunger. Only the need to build something greater than revenge. Only the cold certainty that the game was just beginning. The cameras arrived before she did. Dozens of them. Photographers and news crews camped outside the courthouse, their satellite trucks blocking traffic, their reporters rehearsing angles that would make the perfect soundbite. Because today, the prison queen was coming home. The car pulled up to the curb at 8:47 a.m. Devin stepped out first, his tailored suit and sharp features marking him as someone important. He positioned himself slightly to the side as the back door opened. Miranda emerged into a storm of light. Cameras exploded. Reporters screamed questions. But Miranda didn't rush, didn't flinch. She stood for a moment, letting them photograph her, letting the world see what 5 years of survival had created. She wore a tailored royal blue suit, custom-made, perfectly fitted, the color chosen with deliberate intention. The same shade as her prison uniform, transformed into armor. Her hair was styled professionally, her makeup minimal but precise. She looked powerful, untouchable, like someone who'd been remade in fire. Miranda, do you believe your conviction will be overturned? How do you feel about facing your sister in court? Will you reclaim your position at Lawson Enterprises? She didn't answer any of them, just walked into the courthouse with Devin at her side, her expression serene, her posture regal. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the gallery. Court officials arranged themselves with formal precision. And in the defendant's box, sitting between their lawyers, were Pam and Eleanor. Pam's face went white when she saw Miranda enter. Eleanor's hands trembled. "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Patricia Holloway presiding. This was the same judge who'd sentenced Miranda 5 years ago. But Judge Holloway's expression was different now. Thoughtful, possibly regretful. The expression of someone who'd been forced to reckon with her own role in injustice. The prosecutor, a steely woman named Morrison who'd been brought in specifically for this case, stood before the court. "Your Honor, we have compelling evidence that the conviction of Miranda Lawson was based on falsified testimony, destroyed evidence, and a conspiracy that included the defendant, the co-defendant, and multiple members of their household." The lights dimmed. A screen descended from a ceiling. The security footage began to play. Every eye in the courtroom watched as Pam Lawson walked into her grandfather's study at 9:23 p.m., watched her remove a vial of liquid from her purse, watched her pour it into the waiting teacup, watched her check her phone, timing something, before leaving the study. Then the timestamps shifted. 9:45 p.m., Miranda entering the study to review documents, finding her grandfather already in distress. Then Eleanor at 11:30 p.m. in the security station, methodically deleting files from the backup system. The footage was irrefutable, crystal clear, no ambiguity, no reasonable doubt. Pam's lawyer jumped to his feet. "This footage has no authentication. It's been doctored." "On the contrary," Morrison replied, "it's been verified by 3 independent forensic experts. The metadata is original. The timestamps are genuine, and you received those expert reports 6 months ago." Next came the financial documents. Spreadsheets showing money transferred into accounts with Miranda's name, but opened without her knowledge. Ledgers that had been altered after the arrest, each change time-stamped and traced back to Eleanor's computer. Then the testimony. Dr. Richard Bellamy, who'd been paid $500,000 to bury DNA test results. He'd recorded Eleanor's instructions, insurance against being thrown under the bus. The recordings were played for the court. Eleanor's voice cold and calculating. "The DNA test proves nothing. It's just a piece of paper. What matters is that when your grandfather dies, Pam inherits. Not Miranda. Never Miranda." With each piece of evidence, Pam's composure cracked further. By the time Morrison finished, she was gripping her lawyer's arm hard enough to leave marks. Judge Holloway didn't take long to deliberate. "Based on the evidence presented," she said, her voice carrying the weight of formal regret, "I find that the conviction of Miranda Lawson was obtained through fraudulent means. The evidence of her guilt was manufactured. Her actual innocence is established beyond reasonable doubt." She paused, looking directly at Miranda. "Miranda Lawson, your conviction is hereby overturned. You are exonerated. The court expresses its profound apologies for the injustice you suffered." The courtroom erupted. Reporters screamed into their phones. People in the gallery jumped to their feet, applauding. Cameras flashed like lightning, each flash capturing the moment freedom finally arrived. But Miranda didn't celebrate. She stood perfectly still, her eyes locked on Pam. The evidence against Pam Lawson and Eleanor Hastings is compelling. Judge Holloway continued. You are both remanded to custody pending trial on charges of murder, conspiracy, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. Bailiffs moved toward Pam and Eleanor, cuffs in hand. That's when Miranda walked toward them. Her lawyer grabbed her arm. Don't. Not here. But Miranda couldn't stop herself. She approached the defendant's box slowly, her footsteps echoing through the suddenly quiet courtroom. Pam looked up, her eyes wide, terrified, understanding finally what she created. Miranda leaned in close, just far enough that the cameras couldn't capture words, and whispered, You took my freedom. I took your name. She pulled back slightly, watching Pam's face crumble, then turned and walked back to her seat with absolute composure. The cameras captured everything. Pam's face as she understood, Eleanor's expression as reality struck, and Miranda walking away with the perfect calm of someone who'd already won. She's the prison queen, one reporter whispered to another. The word spread like wildfire. The courthouse steps exploded into chaos as Miranda emerged into sunlight. Reporters surged forward, screaming questions. Security held them back, creating a narrow corridor for her to walk through. She walked slowly, deliberately, giving them time to photograph her, to capture her transformation. Miranda, are you going back to Lawson Enterprises? She didn't answer. What's your next step? Silence. How do you feel about your sister facing prison? She stopped, turned, looked directly into the camera. I feel nothing, she said quietly. My sister ceased to exist to me the moment she chose wealth over family. My stepmother made her own choices. They'll face the consequences of those choices. Will you forgive them? Forgiveness is a luxury for people with time to waste. I don't have that luxury anymore. She continued walking, flanked by Devin and a security team the James family had arranged. The reporters kept shouting questions, but Miranda had already moved beyond their reach. She stepped into a waiting car. The door closed with quiet finality, and the car pulled away from the courthouse. Inside, Devin turned to her. That was perfect. The I feel nothing line is going to be replayed for weeks. I meant it, Miranda said quietly. I know you did. The car drove through the city streets, past the Lawson building, now partially occupied by Philly's James Group executives, the transformation complete, past the neighborhoods where Miranda had grown up, untouched and unchanged, waiting for her return. But Miranda wasn't looking out the window at the past. She was looking forward. Trevor James's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the city's tallest building. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Art that probably belonged in museums. Views that made ordinary people dizzy. Miranda stood at one of those windows, looking down at the city stretched beneath her. Trevor James approached with 2 glasses of expensive scotch. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of presence that made people nervous without him saying a word. You handle that perfectly, he said. I didn't do anything. Exactly. He handed her a glass. Most people would have celebrated, would have gloated, would have let emotion cloud their judgment. But you? He smiled. You walked out like you'd won something that had never mattered. Because it hadn't. Not really. Now that, Trevor said, is the mindset of someone who belongs at the top. He gestured to the view. Welcome to the real world, Miranda. The one where families don't matter. Where loyalty is a weakness. Where power is the only currency that matters. Miranda took a sip of scotch. It burned going down. What do you want from me? Right now? Nothing. In 6 months? Everything. He turned to face her directly. I destroyed the Lawsons because they were competition. But what I really want is an ally. Someone smart enough to understand the game. Someone ruthless enough to play it well. Someone who's already been through the worst the world can offer and came out stronger. You want me to work for you. I want us to work together. Rebuild your empire. But bigger, better. Beyond Lawson Enterprises. Beyond the ordinary rules of business. Miranda looked at the view again. Somewhere out there, Pam was being processed into the prison system. Eleanor was in a holding cell. The Lawson aim was in ruins. Everything she'd survived for, everything she'd planned. And now that she had it, it meant nothing. Because survival wasn't the game anymore. Building was. I need time, Miranda said. You have it, but not much. The world moves fast, and opportunities don't wait for people to process their trauma. Trevor left her alone at the window. That night, Miranda Lawson stood above the city that had thrown her away. Her conviction overturned. Her name cleared. Her freedom absolute. Below her, justice had finally been served. Pam faced prison. Eleanor faced trial. The Lawson Empire was in ruins. Everything she'd fought for, everything she'd survived for. And it felt hollow, because victory had transformed into something colder, something that demanded more. She'd walked into that courtroom as a victim seeking vindication. She'd walked out as something far more dangerous, a woman who'd learned that power wasn't about revenge. It was about dominion. And Miranda Lawson was only just beginning to understand the full scope of what she could build. St. Riverton Correctional Facility. The same concrete walls, the same razor wire, the same institution that had swallowed Miranda Lawson 5 years ago. But today it was transformed. The yard had been prepared, cleaned, organized, decorated with flowers that had been somehow smuggled in. Hundreds of inmates stood along the perimeter, forming a corridor from the main building to the center of the yard. And in that center stood a throne, gilded gold ornate, with red velvet cushions. The prop had come from the prison's old theater program, restored and polished until it gleamed in the afternoon sun. Miranda sat on it wearing a royal blue dress, tailored elegant, the color chosen with symbolic precision. Her hair was styled professionally. She wore no crown, no jewelry, no artifice. Just the blue dress and the throne, and the absolute certainty of her power. She was no longer a prisoner in a blue uniform. She was the prison queen in her coronation moment. Around her, inmates and guards stood in perfect silence. Rosa stood directly to her right, promoted to inmate coordinator by Captain Rhonda, responsible for maintaining order in Miranda's absence. Tanya stood with her crew, respect evident in her posture. Even Keisha, the former rival, stood in line. And the guards, they stood with different expressions than they'd worn 5 years ago. Not contemptuous, not dismissive, reverent. Captain Rhonda stood at Miranda's left, her uniform pressed, her expression proud. She'd orchestrated this event, a rehabilitation ceremony to honor an inmate's transformation, officially sanctioned by the warden, with media present to document the moment. This was no longer secret. This was history. Bring them, Miranda said quietly. Doors opened at the far end of the yard. Pam Lawson and Eleanor Hastings were escorted in, still in custody, still awaiting trial. They'd been transferred to St. Riverton, the same facility that had created the prison queen. The symmetry was perfect. Pam's face was different now. Prison had already begun its work, the confidence gone, replaced by fear and confusion. Eleanor looked age diminished, a ghost of the woman who'd orchestrated dynasties. They were brought to the center of the yard, directly in front of Miranda's throne. Pam's eyes went wide when she saw her sister, when she understood what this was. Miranda, she whispered, please. We didn't. Silence, Miranda said. The word cut through the yard like a blade. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping. Pam knelt, or was forced to kneel, her chains rattling against the concrete. Do you know what it's like? Miranda asked, her voice calm, almost conversational. To have everything stripped away? To be called a murderer when you're innocent? To watch people you love believe lies about you? Miranda, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. You're not sorry you did it, Miranda interrupted. You're sorry you got caught. She stood, descended the steps of the throne, walked toward Pam slowly, deliberately, with all the confidence of someone who'd already won. You thought you were smarter than me. You thought you could steal my birthright, and I just accept it. I didn't think. No, you didn't think. You just didn't care. Miranda's voice was ice. Not about grandfather. Not about father. Not about me. You cared about money, power, the loss of name. And when you realized I was the real heir, the legitimate daughter, you poisoned an old man to keep your stolen life. Pam's face crumpled. She tried to reach for Miranda, but the guards held her back. And Eleanor, Miranda turned to her stepmother. You orchestrated it all. For what? To keep your lover's daughter as your perfect legacy? To hold onto power through deception? Eleanor didn't respond, just sat there, her expression empty, completely broken. You should have let me go, Miranda continued. You should have just let me live somewhere else and pretend I didn't exist. But you couldn't. You needed everyone to believe Pam was worthy. You needed everyone to believe I was guilty. She looked out at the gathered inmates and guards. This woman, Miranda pointed at Pam, is a murderer who murdered her own grandfather because she wanted his money. This woman, she pointed at Eleanor, erased evidence and destroyed lives to cover it up. And they're going to prison, just like I did. But they'll never understand what it means. Miranda, please, Pam begged. I'll do anything. I'll confess. I'll give you everything. Just, I don't want anything from you. The words were more devastating than any violence could have been. They carried finality, erasure. I already have everything I need. The Lawson Empire is gone. Your reputation is destroyed. Your freedom is forfeit. Your life is over. Miranda turned back to the throne, stood in front of it, looked at the crown that someone had left there, a simple thing made from cardboard and painted gold, but symbolic nonetheless. She reached down and picked it up. For a moment she held it. All the power she'd built, all the strategy, all the survival. It was represented in this piece of cardboard. Then, deliberately, she placed it on her head. The yard erupted in cheers. Not riot, revolution. Inmates and guards both acknowledging the moment they were witnessing. The coronation of the prison queen, the woman who transformed hell into empire. Miranda walked to the open gate, the same gate she'd entered 5 years ago in handcuffs. It stood open now, waiting for her. She paused at the threshold and turned back one final time. Pam and Eleanor were being led away, their heads down, their destinies sealed. Rosa stood at attention, ready to maintain the order Miranda had created. Rhonda watched with an expression that might have been pride or farewell, or both. The inmates stood silent, bearing witness. They taught me that power isn't inherited, Miranda said to the yard. That survival isn't about being strong. It's about refusing to break. That empire isn't built with wealth. It's built with strategy. She looked directly at Pam. And most importantly, they taught me that forgiveness isn't strength. It's abdication of power. She removed the cardboard crown and placed it on the throne, passing it to Rosa. To whoever came next. I forgive you, Miranda said softly, but not because I'm merciful. Because forgiveness is what happens when power is so complete that vengeance becomes insignificant. The gates of St. Riverton swung open. Miranda walked through them into the afternoon sunlight, leaving the prison behind, not as an escaped convict, not as a broken woman seeking redemption, as a legend. The media erupted when they saw her. Reporters screamed questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. But Miranda didn't stop, didn't answer, didn't even acknowledge them. She walked to a waiting car. Devin stood by the door, his expression calm, his posture deferential. He wasn't waiting for her to rescue him or need him. He was waiting to work alongside her. Everything is ready, he said as she approached. Trevor James has transferred the initial capital. The foundation documents are prepared. Your first board meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. Miranda stopped before getting in the car. She looked back at the prison one final time, at the walls, the wire, the gates, the place that had destroyed her and created her simultaneously. Thank you, she said quietly. Not to Devin, to the prison itself, to the years of survival, to the lessons carved into concrete. Then she got in the car and the door closed. The Lawson Foundation for Justice occupied a renovated brownstone in the city's most prominent neighborhood. It was a beautiful space, professional but warm, designed for women who'd been through the system, wrongfully convicted, abused, destroyed by a world that didn't care. Miranda stood in the main office, reviewing case files. 12 women were in her program now, being supported through legal appeals, rehabilitation, and reintegration. All of them had been framed by people they trusted. All of them were being given a second chance by someone who understood. A journalist knocked on the door. "Miss Lawson, we're ready for the interview." Miranda nodded. She'd agreed to one final public appearance, a documentary about her case, her transformation, her work with wrongfully convicted women. She sat in front of the camera, her expression composed but not cold. She'd learned in 6 months of freedom to let the world see her humanity without revealing her vulnerabilities. "Miss Lawson," the journalist began, "do you have anything to say to those who wronged you?" Miranda considered the question. Not Pam, not Eleanor, not even her father, who'd finally reached out too late, desperate for reconciliation she had no interest in offering. "Tell them I forgive them," she said finally. The journalist looked surprised, hopeful even. "Because forgiveness," Miranda continued, "is the final act of power. It's what happens when someone no longer matters to you, when they can't hurt you anymore, when you've built something so great that their destruction becomes irrelevant." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "I didn't survive 5 years in prison to become a victim forever. I didn't study law and strategy and power to stay broken. I survived to build something better. And in building that, I've already won." The journalist asked, "Do you still think about your time at St. Riverton?" "Every day," Miranda said honestly, "because it made me who I am, not the victim who walked in, but the woman who walked out." Months later, when the Lawson Foundation had expanded to 12 cities and helped over 500 women, someone asked Miranda Lawson what her greatest achievement was. She didn't say the foundation. She didn't say her exoneration or her wealth or her power. She said survival. Because survival wasn't just about making it through prison. It was about refusing to let anyone, not family, not circumstance, not fate itself, define who she became. The prison queen had walked out of St. Riverton and disappeared into legend. In her place stood Miranda Lawson, entrepreneur, advocate, and proof that power isn't inherited. It's earned, built, seized. And once you have it, truly have it, you can afford to be merciful. Because the person you were forgiving stopped mattering a long time ago. Somewhere in St. Riverton Correctional Facility, Pam Lawson sat in a cell, wearing the same blue uniform Miranda had worn, the same uniform that had become a symbol of transformation for everyone except her. She'd started at the bottom, just like Miranda. But unlike Miranda, Pam would never understand that survival wasn't about the circumstances you faced. It was about who you became in response to them. Miranda had transformed into a queen. Pam would remain a prisoner not because of the bars, but because she lacked the imagination to become anything else. And that was the true punishment, not imprisonment, but the absence of transformation. 10 years after being sent to prison for crimes she didn't commit, Miranda Lawson had become a symbol of resilience, strategy, and the quiet power that comes from refusing to break. She'd learned that revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about transcendence. That forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was the ultimate expression of power. That the real empire wasn't built in the courtroom or the boardroom. It was built in the spaces between suffering and choosing what comes next. And she'd learned, most importantly, that the prison queen's crown wasn't made of gold or jewels or anything material. It was made of the 1,000 small moments when she chose to survive instead of break, chose to build instead of destroy, chose to become something greater than her circumstances. That was the real throne, and Miranda Lawson would sit on it forever. Now it's your turn. Comment below where are you listening from and how you feel about the story. I'll be reading every single one. Subscribe for more stories.